And the Washington County Quorum Court for November 18th is now called into order. We got a full agenda, got a full house, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So good to see everyone. We're going to start with a prayer and pledge. J.P. Madison, would you lead us in prayer and pledge?
I have invited the Reverend Evan D. Garner, who is the rector at St. Paul's Episcopal Church here in Fayetteville. He's going to lead us in the prayer tonight.
Let us pray.
There.
Let us pray. There it goes. Now let us pray. Gracious God, in this season of Thanksgiving, we pause to give you thanks for all the blessings that we enjoy, for the prosperity, for our freedom, for the chance to come and speak and be heard in this form of government, and for all those who offer themselves to keep us safe and to protect our freedoms. As we gather this evening, give us wisdom born of humility, reminding us that in every age you are the one whose heart belongs to those who are poor, those who are in need, those who are on the outside looking in. Help us remember not only the voices of those who have access to the table, but those who yearn for a seat, that we might remember them in all that we do, and through our actions glorify the one who gives us all good gifts. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. J.P. Madison. All right, we will go ahead and then adopt the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? J.P. Dennis.
Before we adopt the agenda, I'd like to ask that we move number 25 and place it above number 10.
I
believe that would
move
accommodate-
item 25
I believe that would accommodate our guests a lot.
and move that to where? After 9?
After 9.
Okay. So 25 becomes the new 10, if you will.
Thank you.
There's been a motion and a second to move item 25 behind number 9. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, so we still need to adopt the agenda as amended.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
There's a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. And the second, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, the agenda has been adopted. Preliminary motions, this is, again, where we ask for items to be read by title only. The motion by you, J.P. Lemming.
Second.
And a second, all in favor of preliminary motions being title and ordinances being read by title only. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, preliminary motions is passed. Citizen comments. This is our opportunity to give citizens an opportunity to come and visit with us according to our ordinances here. So when you come, we ask that you state your name, what city you live in. And with that, come on, citizen comments. Go ahead, take your seat and turn on your mic. Go ahead, take your seat and turn on your mic. There's a button there, hit the button. You haven't hit the button yet. There's a button, hit the button. There we go. There you go. Go ahead.
You hear it now?
Yep.
Okay, I'm Tom Flowers. I live in Springdale at 3911 Louvain Avenue. In 2000, actually 1998, I was first elected constable, and I was a constable elected for 8 years straight. And, well, actually 8 terms. And then on the 19th of March of 2013, there was a order signed by the county judge at that time reducing the constable numbers from 15 to 3. I believe this was totally illegal. It was not supposed to be done that way. They did it under the Amendment 55, which exempts constables from redoing the number of constable positions. that says the county judge, and the only way it can be done is when it's voted on. It has to be voted on by the people, or it's not legal. It has to have constitutional requirements. And on Amendment 55, the offices excluded are the county judge of the court created to pursue Arkansas Constitution, Article 7. Number 2, the justices of the peace who are deemed district officers, and constables who are deemed township officers. Now, a township and a district, I don't care what you call a township, but it's a township, whether you call it a district or a township or anything. This was never done correctly. I went to court, and I didn't get a majority. I didn't do that. But this judge realized what I was saying. I'm going to read it to you for a second. I cannot join this holding. Here, the county court issued an order effectively reducing the number of elected constables in Washington County from 15 to 3. The problem, of course, is that the county court engaged in this action without vote of the people. The Arkansas Constitution provides that a county's quorum court without a vote, the Arkansas Constitution provides the county's quorum court may create, consolidate, separate, revise, or abandon any elected county office or offices except during the term thereof, provided that a majority of those voting on the question as the general election have approved said action. This was not done. Marilyn Edwards signed this as an outgoing county judge, and that's how that was done. But that was not done correctly or anything. And this was on the 19th of March, 2013, and it lumped 15 constables into 3 constable positions.
All right, Mr. Clowers, you need to go ahead and start wrapping up. You had 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. What I'm asking that you do, I'm in township number 2. I'm not asking for everything to go back like it was. But I'm the first constable in 139 years to go to the police academy and become state certified.
Mr. Clowers, are you wrapping it?
I would like to have mine, my position put back as it was and separated from constable position number 1. That's
Thank
what
you.
I'm asking to do. And I'd like to be put on the agenda for next month where I can do that. And all these orders that I've got
Thank you,
showing all
Mr.
this
Clowers.
will be done.
Thank you. Citizen comments. Mr. Clowers, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, come on in.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm one of the co-founders of the Arkansas Justice Reform Coalition. And in August, we were having conversations about the American Rescue monies, and there was some conversation about having a formal discussion around all of the needs and a full assessment of what we could spend these monies on, the $23 million that was received this year from the federal treasury for direct response to COVID. Unfortunately, this body has not done that yet, and I really hope that you'll consider doing that very soon. Our organization has gone across the county to 8 different cookouts that ended this weekend in Springdale. We were in Springdale, Elkins, Prairie Grove, Farmington, Fayetteville, Lincoln, and we were able to break bread and eat with our neighbors and hear from them. We additionally did a vote where we asked what were the buckets and the areas that folks wanted us to focus as a body going forward. We had an online poll at www.yourcovidrelief.com. We also had an in-person voting poll. And I will tell you that the top areas that folks at 34% responded was needing direct household assistance. Those things like rent and mortgage relief, utility assistance, home repair, and food needs. The second area that folks were needing or wanting focus in is education, where kids have fallen behind, being able to help with gap learning services, in-home visits for families that are struggling, and foster care family assistance. I have a hard copy to deliver one to each of you tonight. Additionally, the stack in front of me is from 893 of our neighbors in Washington County that are asking you to not move forward with any additional spending. That ARPA money is currently down to $16.7 million if you pass the 4.8 monies towards staff tonight, and we're asking you not to move forward after that point. Judge, you yourself said we would sit down and we'd have that conversation. We'd really like to get that on the schedule. I want to just briefly, in my short time I have up here, highlight a few of the comments that came out of us talking. Small businesses told us in Springdale back in September that Hispanic and Black businesses don't feel supported by the county. They sustained higher damage during the pandemic as many were infected or had to quarantine, and these businesses are still struggling and suffering with aid needed from the county to make them whole. No one has reached out to these areas to look into relief for these more impacted businesses. Mental health needs and permanent supportive housing were brought up in Springdale. In Fayetteville, we heard about the arts community needing financial support, food assistance, opening the crisis stabilization unit with urgency. In Elkins, we heard people say we need to go back to hybrid meetings because COVID isn't over. Folks talk about homelessness assistance needing especially for the LGBTQ community. Thank you. I know my time has expired. If I could have 1 or 2 minutes longer, I could highlight a few of the other
30
areas.
seconds, go ahead.
Thank you. In Farmington, we heard about mental health care gaps that are existing for folks in that community, wanting assistance for small businesses that could help the community's economy bounce back, and hardships for people with children returning to work, including the unavailability of childcare, also not being able to afford it because of the wages they were currently earning. Additionally, some people's child care had gone under multiple quarantines, which had put people's jobs in jeopardy. In Lincoln, we heard people are having to choose between their medications and food. People are not
Okay,
able...
Ms. Moore, go ahead and make this your last point.
Okay, absolutely. Let me skip ahead and give West Fork...
No, don't skip ahead. Just finish that point you're on right now.
Okay, well, so West Fork brought up about broadband, so
All
thank
right.
you for giving me
Thank
extra
you.
time. I appreciate
Citizen
it.
comments
Can I give these or give these to Ms. Patty to
after
hand
the
out?
meeting, yes.
Thank you.
I'm Richard Tiffany from Fayetteville, and I was not able to attend the finance meeting. I know it was a long meeting. The video was chopped into 2 pieces. At the end of the first piece, they had just begun talking about food assistance, and then the video went off, and the second meeting had moved on to the next item. So I don't really know what the reason that wasn't brought forth to the full quorum court. Because it was missing in the video, but I have invited all of you at least twice, some of you more, to visit St. James Food Bank, where I've been a volunteer for over a year, and we feed 600 or 700 families every week, and this is food that people need around the county. And one of the items on that was not put on to not passed onto this to the agenda for today was assistance for food banks and people around. And there's, if people don't have food, not much else matters. And St. James has like 50 volunteers that distribute that food every week, and they really could use some assistance. Some weeks they come up short, and they could really use some additional freezer and cooler so that they don't have to get delivery of cold food Tuesday morning in order to pass it out, to have them a little time to process things. Thanks.
Citizen comments.
Thank you, Judge Wood. My name is Beth Koger. I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I just want to highlight a few things that Ms. Moore was talking about that maybe she didn't get to finish on. Some of the things that we've heard as we have been in the county listening to people, I just want to remind you of a few that stood out. Almost everyone, there was housing assistance, food assistance, child care, mental health access. And I want to point out that all those are items that are mentioned under the Treasury interim rules that we have right now. They're all in a bucket or buckets that are specified, so there's no question that we can spend money on those items. And on a personal note, I want to say that we were contacted yesterday by a young mother whose power was turned off because she couldn't pay a $200 plus electric bill. We reached out to people, we got that bill paid, but she went last night, because we didn't get paid in time, she went last night with no electricity. And I share that because we hear from a lot of people in the community who are having a hard time keeping a roof over their head, feeding their families. And let's see, and I want to thank all the JPs who did come to our community cookouts, because I know you took time out of your personal time to do that. JP Washington, JP Madison, JP Dennis, JP Hires, JP Rio Stafford, JP Lemming, and JP Wilson. Thank you so much. I would encourage the others who didn't make those meetings that you might want to set something up in your community, because believe me, the people want to hear, they want to be heard, and they'd love to hear from you too. One other thing, I'm not sure that the next item can be on a third reading because of amendments, but I'll let y'all decide on that.
Citizen comments? Citizen comments. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to item 6, approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes. Got a motion? Second? Second. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, our minutes are approved. Item 7 is you should have got a disposal property report in your package. And with the long item, we're going to move on to item 8, unfinished business. So with that, council, will you read that one by title only?
Item 8 is on its third and final reading. It's an ordinance establishing the Washington County annual budget for the fiscal and calendar year 2022.
JP Dickens.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I would like to comment again and just say I appreciate your office, and I appreciate all the elected officials, and I appreciate all of our county employees helping put this together. I think we've been very frugal through the pandemic, and I move passage of item number 8.
There's a motion to pass. Is that second, JP Madison? JP Duncan? All right, we got a motion and a second.
I have an amendment too when you get the chance.
All right, let me go to JP Madison.
I think Ms. Koger is correct. We've amended the budget since it was on its first readings, and that takes it back to its first reading under procedure. Anytime that it's amended, it goes back to first reading. And it was amended several times last month, so there's no way it can be on third reading.
We put amendments in, yes.
And if it's going to be amended tonight, then it will be back on first reading tonight.
Is that what you're asking to amend tonight?
No, I have
a
separate amendment.
Okay.
Is that the rule of?
Well, no, so I'm just trying to follow. So we amended the rules, we amended the budget twice, I think the first read and the second read. First read and the second read. We're on this third read, but I don't think we've ever sent it all back to go on this first read. It just continues to go on with those amendments that you guys make. Do we have a Robert's Rule read?
So the rules and the laws as they relate to ordinances are statutory. And the statute is what requires us to have 3 separate and distinct readings of every ordinance, unless it's an appropriation ordinance and gets 10 votes at the first reading and then it automatically passes. That's the only exception, or if it's an emergency ordinance. And so under the statutory rules in the state of Arkansas, there isn't anything that states if something starts over or goes or moves on.
JP Madison and then JP Ecke.
Once it's amended, it becomes a new ordinance in effect. And so every time we've ever dealt with any type of amendment, the procedure in this body has always been and is under established Arkansas law, regardless of Robert's rules. If an ordinance is amended, it goes back to first reading, period. And this ordinance has been amended multiple times and cannot be on third reading. If we pass it on third reading tonight, I think our budget's in jeopardy.
Can you cite the law so I can look it up, please?
Well, you're the county attorney, so.
And I'm stating that there is no law that says that, so if you could tell me what that is, that would be great.
All right. JP Ecke.
I like to find solutions, Judge, and I'll just suspend the rules and ask that we all consider advancing it each time to its third and final reading.
I'm go ahead and until we get something different, we're going to go ahead and proceed as we have been. So this will be on its third JP Deacons, you had another piece that you want to add to here, or not?
Yeah, I do. Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion that we amend the budget summary that's included in the budget. Ms. Patty forwarded that to all the JPs today from Treasurer Hill. As we've worked through the budget, he's continued to revise the budget summary and update his revenue projections for next year. And he would like for that new material to be included in the budget. It does not affect any of the mechanical budgets of the elected officials, if you will. It's just it's included in that budget as the budget summary. And I would like to make a motion that we add that to the budget. Replace the current budget summary with the new.
So those were sent out, I guess, this afternoon. JP Deacons put a motion to replace the budget summary with the updated treasurer's budget summary. There was a second. All in discussion, all in favor? Those opposed? All right. So that's the budget being amended to add the updated budget summary, which was always going to be a moving piece. Discussion. Any discussion on the amended budget with the? That's what we just did. Did we just do that? Yeah. A motion to approve the budget as amended. And a motion and a second to approve the budget as amended, which is adding the treasurer piece in there. All in favor? Those opposed? Oh, this is the discussion, and then we had the discussion, public comments.
You have discussion first.
Ask discussion.
Right. Somebody, JP Stafford.
JP Stafford.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I have an amendment I'd like to propose, but I'm a little confused about where we're at right now.
All right, so right now we're on the approved, the budget has been approved as amended, which is adding the treasury report that you guys got, the budget summary. What's your amendment?
Okay, great. So we have a lot of county workers here tonight. I know that they're looking ahead to a little bit ahead in our agenda about premium pay, which is awesome. But that's a thank you for the hard work that they've done, and it's a one-time payment, and it's coming from a one-time fund. We've discussed previously, we're going to be amending the pay ranges by 10%, which is the first time in 10 years that these pay ranges have been amended if we pass this budget. But when we, in committees, when we were discussing this, myself and several other of the JPs felt that this, even with that 10%, didn't do enough for the people at the bottom of the pay range. So my amendment is that I'd like to propose that all pay grades 11 and under, and I've passed out the charts to everybody, all pay grades 11 and under be increased to a salary minimum of $15 an hour, starting January 1st, 2022.
Did everyone get that? I haven't seen that yet. Okay, so you're asking that we amend the budget, all grades, all pay grades under 11. 11 and under or under 11? 11 and under to be moved to $15 an hour as a starting. Do we have any workup on the dollars? Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to amend the approved budget as amended with the budget treasury to now amend the budget to, your discussion on this one, JP Hires? Or is that a second? Okay, so let me go with her amendment first. Pardon me? All right, so we got a motion on the floor to amend the budget, pay grades 11 and under, $15 start rate. Do we need to go ahead and have any other discussion on this amendment? Any discussion? All right, do we want to go ahead and do the call? JP Deacons?
Thank you, Judge Wood. First, if J.P. Rios staffer will accept, I have a quick question about what happens for the employees that make between 11 and 15? Did I misunderstand? The motion was for 11 and under, correct? Grade 11 and under.
Grade
I gotcha,
11.
gotcha. Well, here's I think we were very deliberate about what we did in the budget this year, and by moving the pay ranges up and the 3.5% merit raise. And I want to thank all the JPs for supporting that stuff. And working with our consultant, our compensation consultant, the Johanssons, we always knew that was going to be a first step. And we have a lot of work for our county employees to do. The ordinance that's on later for the bonus, I completely understand, is a one-time thing. So what I would say is we're working on that. I invite all the JPs to work on that, but to move unilaterally on this right now, I think is very it's unwise to move forward with this right now without the full effects before the court and to have an idea of what it does to the general fund. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge. One thing I noticed right away was number 12, pay grade 12 is 1501. So what happens to those folks? They just get 1501 plus the 10%?
That would stay where it is.
Stay where it is? I'd feel a little burned if I were 12. But that's okay. I would like to talk about it. It is this that we're talking about right now. And I'd like to share with you what I learned this week. I was challenged on it, and so I decided to look it up. And so called Marion County and said, hey, this is who I am. This is my credentials. And could you share with me public records on what people make for the road department? And position 1 makes $15.85. Position 3 makes $16.85. Equipment operator makes $16.35. Supervisor makes $17.35. A starting salary ranges from $13.75 to $14.50. So we've got people that have been working for us for 2 years that make less than what they start at in Marion County. And if you don't know where Marion County is, that's Yellville. Not exactly the economic capital of Arkansas by any means, but map and sign people make $15 an hour, and a brand new non-road department person was hired in at $14 an hour. So folks, we're way, way, way behind. And I appreciate everybody that wants to give raises, but I'll say the same thing I've said over and over and over before, as I've said on court, and I was off for 2 years. And I regret that I was off for 2 years because you didn't do much on those 2 on giving raises. But you can't give a person who doesn't make very much money a percentage raise and expect them ever to get anywhere. Because a percent of $10 is, not very much. A percent, if you're making $30, is a whole lot more. And so our system is broken if we think that the easy way is the best way, because it's not. We need to do our homework and give people money for what they do based on their hourly work and what they do, not on a percentage every year, because the percentage doesn't keep, for one thing, the percentage doesn't keep up with inflation. If you give a 3% raise and inflation's 6.5%, or if you give a 10% raise and inflation's going to be up to 10% before the end of the year. I know one county employee for Washington County found out what his insurance was going to cost him, and then he didn't do some of the insurance because he couldn't afford it, and dropped some insurance, and then his raise was enough for $8. His raise would be $8, and he stopped and bought 2 cheeseburgers and a fry at McDonald's and paid $7.10. So he spent his raise for the month in one restaurant stop. And so I'm not a big fan of percentages. I've said it all along, and I'll always say it. Percentages isn't the right way. I'll also say this while I've got the, got the mic. We got way too many brackets. Way too many brackets. This is insane. I work for the world's largest food company, and we had 5 brackets. And number 5 was a CEO. And you could look at all 5 brackets and see what anybody in the company made. And you had the low amount, the high amount, and the average amount. And if you break it down and that simple, that large of a company can do 5 brackets. I don't understand when I saw this for the first time how we can have so many brackets. I just don't understand it. Maybe the department managers can tell me, but we need to revise the whole system. But the other part is, any way we can get them money, I'm for it, because they're way underpaid. And so I'll be supporting this. I don't like it because it's percentages, and it'll leave somebody out. I don't like it for that reason, but at least they're going to get the 13% if that passes. So thank you for bringing it forward. And thank you for your time.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to amend the approved budget by taking all grade 11 and down and taking them $15 an hour. We have a second by JP Hires. Is that correct? All in favor for the amendment to the budget? That's what I'm saying. All in favor? All opposed? No. So the noes have it. Noes have it. So we're back to the original. All in favor of the amendment? All opposed? Okay. So the amendment fails. So we're back to the approved budget as amended. Any other discussion? JP Hires?
Thank you, Judge. I think we still have an issue of the Division 8 courtroom to address in the current budget. We all have a letter here on our desk that is explaining the necessity of making sure that Division 8 has the appropriate number of employees. I would like to make a motion to approve Judge Warren's budget as it was originally presented to the Budget Committee.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the original Circuit Court 8's budget. And the second, who was that? JP Madison. All in favor, any discussion? JP Pine?
Here, to clarify, I want to know for sure what we're voting on. Are we voting on the budget that Judge Warren requested? There's another thing that goes along with that. I want to know if Judge Zimmerman's budget will be passed as she requested hers. I'm not interested in seeing any of her staff reduced. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Pine. JP Hires?
Yes, the original budget as it was brought to the Budget Committee from the beginning, giving her the staff that she originally asked for.
And that was, I can't recall, was that 8? What was, you guys remember? I don't remember what the numbers were. 9?
Since I've got the mic, let me go ahead and, I met with Judge Warren and right after our budget meeting where we wanted to send it back to committee because we felt like it still had some work to do, and nobody wanted to do that, and that's fine. But I did meet with Judge Warren, and she told me that, she just needs a staff. We lobbied for this court. We have to fund this court. If she's supposed to take half the juvenile cases, then she needs at least half of the budget, and she's okay with, having half the budget after diversion funding is taken care of to have her staff. We all have a letter right here. Has everybody read the letter? I think it clearly states the case that we need to fund this court appropriately. We have lots of children and families in distress. Offense cases are starting up soon, and we are not staffing this court appropriately. And so that's why I wanted to bring this forward. Thank you.
J.P. Stafford. Real Stafford.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I honestly can't understand why we spent months mucking around with this. This is what we should have done in the first place. And, you know, all we've done is create a situation now where there's been a lot of discord, I think. And I hope all that can settle down and heal. You know, but I think that we've done some damage to our county courts by, you know, trying to you know, cut corners basically. You know, so I'll be supporting this.
J.P. Ecke.
Point of clarification, are we going to need a separate motion to amend Judge Zimmerman's budget after this?
Okay, so the budget as J.P. Dickens helped me understand, the budget as we currently have it has the account as what, staffing for for Judge Zimmerman and Judge Warren.
The budget as it's presented right now created 4 new positions for Judge Warren and moved 5 from Zimmerman's court to Judge Warren's court.
For a total of 9.
For a total of 9. Yes, sir.
All right, so so she has the 9. We're saying the original. What's the difference in the dollars then? Are they here? So what's I guess I'm trying to understand the difference in the dollars. If the 9 was originally proposed, right? Mm-hmm. So she gets a staff of 9. Where is she? Judge Warren? There you go.
Okay. Hello. Okay. So the budget that I originally proposed had a total of 13 employees. 9 of those were juvenile officers. The total amount requested for salaries was $406,457,000. After the Finance and Budget Committee had voted to amend the budgets and transfer 5 positions from Division 3 to Division 8, the proposal in the revised budget that the Quorum Court received on September 13th was for a total of 9 positions total, all of which were juvenile officers, and the total amount budgeted was $345,855.
Okay, so roughly a $45,000 difference with the additional 4 people adding that if we go back to your original, there was 4 additional people versus what you have currently in the current budget that's being presented.
In the 2021 budget, this year's budget, I have 0 employees. In my requested 2022 budget, I was asking for a total of 13 employees, 9 of whom would be juvenile officers. And in the amended budget then, from Finance and Budget to the full Quorum Court, the revised budget had just a total of 9 officers total.
Correct. That's
and
what
they
I'm
were
saying.
all juvenile officers.
That's right. Okay. So, make sure your request is for it to go back to 13 and not 9. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm just
Okay.
trying to come up with a solution that's going to create a fully staffed court. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we have thank you, Judge Warren. We have a motion and a second to amend the approved budget to the original request made by Judge Warren. So let's take that one first because then we may, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, J.P. Wilson.
Thank you, Judge. Just to make sure we're clear on what had been in the budget as we ran it through, there had been 20 people serving the 2 courts, 3 and 8. If you take 4 of those out because they're involved in programs, then that would leave 16. If you take 5 out of 8, then you end up with 10. There's a difference of 1 there, but you end up, what the original budget provided was 10 people serving caseloads in District 3 and 9 serving caseloads in District 8. So fairly even between the two. And I would point out that if you look at that, we've had 15 people serving both judges for all of 2021 and getting the job done theoretically. What this proposes is going up by 26% in people handling caseload, okay? So it's not that there's no increase, it's going up by 26% in the total number of people taking care of caseload. That's not doing anything with the 4 people who do programs. We've got programs going on, and those fall under Judge Zimmerman. And of course, Judge Warren could use those programs or could decide not to use those programs at her discretion. But as far as people handling caseload, we're talking about going up 26%, going up 4 people between the 2 districts. So we have 10 in one district and 9 in the other. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Wilson. J.P. Lemming, and then J.P. Madison, then J.P. Simons. J.P. Lemming.
I just want to clarify, are we taking 5 of Ms. Zimmerman's employees? Yes, so that's going to take her from her, it's going to take 5 out of her staff if we go to the original budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. So I don't think, okay, thank you.
J.P. Madison, and then J.P. Simons. Give me a second here. I can't get it pop. There we go. J.P. Madison.
I want to make sure that, and maybe this is a friendly amendment for JP hires, but I think what we should be voting on together is to pass their budgets as both Judge Zimmerman and Judge Warren as requested, and not try to move people around and vote on it twice. This court was very, very in favor of adding a new division for our circuit courts. And I find it really astonishing that after doing that, we're making the new judge grovel to be fully staffed. I mean, she's had to come to this courtroom multiple times to say, can I have people? Can I have furniture? Can I have floor that's not concrete in an unfinished space? We supported adding this circuit court division, and we've got to support it. And only they know what it takes to staff their courts. They're the ones managing their dockets. I don't think we should say, well, we think you can do it with half the people, or we think you can do it with 26% fewer people. I don't think any of our circuit judges are in the business of coming here and saying, give us a whole lot of people that can sit around and do nothing. They are very much in favor of preserving tax dollars, and they would not be here asking for people if they did not need them. But let me speak to this notion of moving people from Judge Zimmerman to Judge Warren. Those are people that Judge Zimmerman hired that have worked for her, and we are just going to pluck them up and send them over to a new court without really checking with either of those involved people about whether to do that? Think about those of you out there who have jobs. Would you like to just have 5 of your people moved over and lose them? That's not fair to those people. It's not fair to Judge Zimmerman. It's not fair to Judge Warren. We need to pass these budgets as they were requested and get on with it. And so I don't know if we need to revise the motion, but this motion needs to be to vote on it all together. Judge Zimmerman gets her budget and Judge Warren gets her budget as they originally were requested. Thank you, Judge.
Judge J.P. Simons.
Thank you, Chair. We started this budget process early in the year, to the dismay of some, with the intent of not waiting till the 11th hour to be making changes like we did last year. I had every intention on wanting to move forward with the budget. It's not about whether we want this or whether they need the positions. It's dollars and cents. We have to make the money work. So if there's a proposal for original budgets, then I feel like this needs to go back to Personnel and probably even Budget and Finance Committee again to look at the numbers to find out, can we make it work? So I know it can, but should it be passed here tonight? Or should it be kicked back into the Budget and Finance Committee to review the numbers and make it work?
That's it. J.P. Pond and then J.P. Hires.
There we go. I just want to make sure and be clear on it. From what I understand from J.P. Hires, she is not, her motion is to vote for Judge Warren's original budget request. And I don't believe Judge Warren had anything in her request requiring 5 of Judge Zimmerman's employees to come over to her. So, and I just want to make sure that's clear in there, whether we're all for it or we're not all for it. We don't want to vote on something now and then find out later, well, that's what you said, the original. J.P. Hires was asking for the original request to be voted on this evening. It has nothing to do with taking employees from Judge Zimmerman, which is not really even any of Judge Warren's business or even any of ours. We don't have the power, the capacity to tell Judge Zimmerman or Judge Warren who they're going to hire. That's not our bailiwick. We're talking budget and appropriating money for a budget. And so if we're about to vote on this or it's about to go back to personnel or whatever it's going to do, I just want to have that to be stated very clearly to us before this vote comes about. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Okay. J.P. Simons, I believe that you are correct, and that's why back in September, I made a motion to move this back to the Budget Committee because I didn't feel like it was addressed well enough for us to continue down this path, but that did not pass. So J.P. Madison, if that was a friendly amendment, I accept the friendly amendment. I would like to pass both pass both Division 3 and Division 8's budget as originally presented to this Quorum Court, to the Budget Committee,
One more time.
I would like to move to approve both Division 3 and Division 8's budgets as originally presented to the Budget Committee.
To the court for tonight. As they presented it to the finance budget. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
So we have a friendly amendment that's been accepted. So the motion now on the floor is to amend the budget, approving the original budgets that submitted to the Finance and Budget Committee of Division 3 and Division 8.
Yes.
Is there a second? Yes. There's a second by J.P. Lemming. All in favor? All those opposed? We had a discussion. All right, so let's do a hand vote. Go ahead, restate the motion, Pat.
The motion on the floor is a motion to amend the budget to approve only Division 3 and Division 8 of the Circuit Court's budgets as they were presented originally to the Finance and Budget Committee, which would mean that you would not need to then amend the budget again to undo what you did with Division 3 and moving. So it's as they were presented to the Finance and Budget Committee. That's the amendment.
All right, heard the amendment. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Okay, so now, J.P. Deakins, will you redo your motion and make sure we capture those two amendments? See if we can follow that one. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Great question.
Here's it.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I move that we pass the budget as amended with the inclusion of tonight's budget summary by Treasurer Hill, and to replace the Circuit 3 and Circuit 8 judges' budgets with the originally presented budgets to the Finance and Budget Committee. Does everybody think that? You really put me on the spot here.
That was good. Good. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the budget as amended with tonight's budget summary by the treasurer, as well as the amended budgets the original budgets of Division 3 and 8. All in favor?
No.
Or discussion?
Second, and then you got discussion.
We got a second. Discussion. J.P. Madison and then J.P. Duncan.
So I'm grateful for the citizens watching who are able to use Google to give us the correct legal advice. This comes from the Association of Counties Quorum Courts Manual. Occasionally, a member or members may wish to amend an ordinance which is on a second or third reading. To meet the requirements of the law for full and distinct readings on 3 separate days requires that the proposed ordinance be placed back on first reading. Thank you, Judge.
All right. J.P. Duncan and then J.P. Simons.
So there's a thing called the crescendo effect. And when you're at the end of a negotiation, people are just ready for it to move on and get the thing done. And so towards the end, people will concede, even though they disagree with what just took place. That's crescendo effect. So if you're at a car dealership for 7 hours, you're tired of drinking their coffee, eventually you'll give in, or they will, one way or the other. We just witnessed the crescendo effect tonight. We have been working on these budgets for months. We understood that the caseload was high, and so we added another judge this last year. We were very thankful for that. We had the 2 judges. They were both splitting caseworkers, and they brought a very lofty ask to bring on, to bring on 9 new positions, and instead we thought that it would be wiser to bring on just 4 new positions. So now, because of the crescendo effect here at the last hour, we've been persuaded to bring on an additional 5 positions without considering the actual cost of those extra positions. This year, the entire job has been done by the same staff. I'm sure they're overworked, working significant hours, and I think that would be alleviated by the 4 positions. It's frustrating to sit here and act like these conversations haven't been happening. The budget was amended, it passed with the 4 added positions, not 9 positions, and now here at the last hour, we've just all of a sudden added 9. It's going to be hard to vote yes to a budget. Again, we started this in September to go through this. Chairman Deakins did an excellent job of bringing this before the court, bringing in all the different department heads, and trying to be diligent and do this early. And then, again, the same thing happens where people just sneak things in at the last minute, which will cost thousands and thousands of thousands of dollars. And it just seems unnecessary. So I had to share that. Thanks.
J.P. Simon.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm working with part of the picture here, and I don't have my full budget book tonight because I thought we were ready to put this to bed, but the original proposed Division 8 was 406,000. The current, as we have it right now, was 345. So that's a difference of 51,000, 61,000. I'm sorry. I don't have the piece to Judge Zimmerman. So again, the crescendo effect. Kind of hard to vote for something that I don't know the numbers on. I would love it. Thank you for being prepared in my absence.
Thank you for letting me speak. And the original budget that both Judge Warren and I submitted back in June, which the Finance Committee amended and sent on to the full quorum court, has Judge Warren requesting 9 additional juvenile officers, which I supported in my budget that I sent in June. I sent in all the documentation outlining what we were asking for, which was to keep the same number of staff in Division 3 that handles all of the diversion programs which you funded in Washington County. And the bottom line amount for all those employees in Division 3, $818,296. I sent another packet to you all individually by mail on October the 14th. I listed our original budget, the same budget that we asked for last year. I also included a copy of the check that the County General Fund received for reimbursement for salaries of Division 3 employees to the tune of $235.45. I also included the grants that we received to help with all of our diversion programs. So all of this information has been with the quorum court members since Judge Warren and I have both submitted our budgets back in June. And so to say that we're trying to sneak things in at the last minute, I would disagree with that. Judge Warren made it clear in what she submitted to the court in June. I made it clear about what we needed in Division 3 to continue to support children and families. And the only sticking point between Judge Warren and I, we're on the same page, is that I think that the 5 people that the quorum court's Finance Committee said should come out of Division 3 to go to Division 8, that was the only sticking point that we had. So I would ask that you trust the elected officials who've been working in juvenile justice for over 70 years, when you include Judge Warren's time, the supervisors we have today, Judge Warren and myself, you got 80 years of intense knowledge about the system. And you need to trust your elected officials. Some of you have come down over the years to see what we do in juvenile court, and I appreciate that. These are our children, our families. During a pandemic, you're asking us to give up staff to people in crisis to help kids. I mean, I thought we were a pro-life resolution county for families and children. And not only are we asking for families and children to get services in both of the divisions, it's something we've asked for since June. There's no surprise about it. The only surprise is some of us don't agree and some of us don't. That's not a surprise. That's not a crescendo effect. It's Judge Warren and I didn't give a chance to tell you at the Finance Committee what our position was until after you amended the budget and didn't send it back to Finance. You sent it to the full quorum court. Hats off to Jim Wilson. He sat there like a trooper, came down to juvenile court, sat with Judge Warren and I, 2 strong-willed women, who, by the way, are both judges, and he was rocking it. He maybe didn't agree with some of what we did, but he didn't run away, did he, Judge Warren? He did a great job, but I'm asking you as the elected official for my budget, for our children to be approved tonight, and that you approve Judge Warren's budget that she submitted that hasn't been changed except by the Finance Committee, and approve the 2 original budgets and give her some space to have her people that she needs to have. We've shared staff for a long time now. It's not working. It's too much. And so I'm asking you for the children and the families of Washington County to adopt the original budget submitted by Judge Warren, Division 8, and me, Judge Zimmerman, Division 3. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge Zimmerman. J.P. Dennis and then J.P. Madison.
Amen. That would sum it up in a sense, but what I was going to say, you know, the letter came to us here, and did you see who signed it? You know, I'm not the smartest guy on the horseshoe or in the room. Judge Martin, Judge Zimmerman, Judge Bryan, Judge Taylor, Judge Lindsay, Judge Beaumont, Judge 3. So, folks, if you want to ask a question about judicial, you would ask the judicial people. You don't ask a chocolate salesman. So, I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
J.P. Madison and then J.P. Duncan.
Thank you, Judge. I was curious, because we don't actually have the budget that we're voting on, and I know that's been somewhat of an issue in the past. I've had some questions as to what's online, given that what we're voting on is online. When was the last time what was online was changed and how it was changed?
I couldn't tell you. I don't see the comptroller here, so I can't tell you what's on there.
Because the only way to tell what's been changed is there are certain pages that say they were revised on a date, but you can't tell what was changed. And then I just want to ensure that after that last date that's indicated nothing else was changed. So that gives me a little pause. But I want to comment about our budget process. The committee worked hard, but it was just the committee of 7. There are 15 people on this quorum court. 8 people didn't have a vote in our budget process this year. This is the first opportunity for the full court to pass judgment on the budget. So for people to say that the committee worked hard and now the rest of us are trying to undo things and sneak things in at the last minute, it's because we didn't have a vote in the budget committee. We couldn't even sit at the horseshoe. We had to sit in the audience and come up and speak, mostly during public comment, like members of the public. So the committee worked hard, but the 8 of us who were not on the committee did not have a voice in that process, and this has been the forum for that voice. So those of us who watched the budget committee and didn't like what happened with Judge Warren and Judge Zimmerman's budget, our only option was to come here and change it here. And we've been trying to do that in September, in October, and now November. That's why we're here. That's why we're trying to vote on this in November, and why it's at quorum court. So I want everybody to know that. If it concerns you that your JP does not have a vote in the budget process, you need to let the county judge know, because he appoints the committees. It worked very well for many, many, many years for all of us to have a voice in that process. But the budget that came out of the budget committee was not the quorum court's budget. It was only those 7 JP's budgets. And that's why the process didn't work that great this year. Thank you.
And J.P. Duncan and then J.P. Ecke.
The simple fact is that the caseload did not double. We have added a new judge, and coming into this evening, we added 4 new positions. And then now it was just voted on, we have 9 new positions instead of the 4. Does anybody on the court who just voted to approve that know what the cost implication is annually of those 5 additional positions? So that's what scares me, is we oversee the budget, and no one can tell me what the cost implication is of adding 5 positions this evening. Obviously we had all voted on that. There was opportunity to make amendment. And I think actually it was attempted at a previous quorum court meeting and failed, and we stuck with the 4. I'm done dying on this hill. I just want to remind everyone that we oversee the budget, and the quorum court just passed something they have no idea the dollar implication. Seems wise, right? That was sarcasm. Thanks.
J.P. Ecke and then J.P. Pine. J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. to disparage somebody to say they didn't work hard just because you weren't a part of the process, I believe is just unfair and nasty and unnecessary. People work hard. Other people can't just judge that. That's just a point. Secondly, I do agree with J.P. Duncan that we don't know the financial impact to this, Judge, and we need to know the numbers before we pass it. But if it's just 5 additional numbers, then I guess we could pull up their budgets, add them together, and figure it out. As to the motion that is on the floor to move these back to the original budget requests, I do agree with Judge Zimmerman that we are a pro-life county, and we did pass that resolution. And it is important to me to protect all the lives from birth, from the uterus to the end, and not just those that are in the uterus. One of my foundational statements as a Christian, as an American, is that under God, to regard and value the lives of others, demonstrated through servant leadership, and that's why we're here as JPs, investing in the next generation by helping them on their journey and growth process to communicate dignity, hope, and encouragement into the lives of others. Serving as chairman on the Personnel Committee, we recognize families in need of services. Our FINS, supervisors, and probation officers who handle urgent care cases of families in crisis are the most important component administrating protective services to children, juveniles, and their families of Washington County. Just today, I found out that one of our employees was helped by Judge Zimmerman. He, 3 of his brothers, and 2 of his sisters were removed from the custody of his grandmother, who was a drug addict, and given back to custody of the father. And he said, finally, we had stability in our lives. And boy, that Judge Zimmerman, I'm telling you, Mrs. Ecke, she's tough. But what she did is she saved my life. I had to stop and say, wow. And that was just today. I didn't ask for it. So I have to stop and think, what are we doing? Are we handcuffing our circuit judges and those that are trying to help them? Why should we approve this amendment to the budget? Because it is our constitutional duty to fund county services. Moreover, it will communicate hope and encouragement into the lives of those young people who Judge Zimmerman and her staff, Ms. Frisbee, and the other FIN supervisors are helping through the diversion program and supporting Into the Light, an organization bringing awareness to the issue of human sex trafficking here in Washington County, and I will say yes, in Springdale, Arkansas. It is my objective, and it should be yours, your objective for those young minors, never, never, never to meet our prosecutor, Matt Tourette, in a professional capacity. Isn't that what juvenile court is all about? Diverting them from the path that they're on and putting on the path that gives them hope in the future. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Pine.
I had one other thing to say, and it's got to do with, a thing that keeps being brought up here, a program, the diversion program. And everybody knows what a diversion program is, I'm sure. But I would encourage anyone who has never gone and visited the diversion program that Washington County has up in Springdale. It's off of Emma Street, little after school educational project please, if you haven't seen that, you don't know what you're voting on. I would encourage any of you to make an appointment, call Judge Zimmerman or Judge Warren's office, make some kind of appointment to go and see what this is we're doing with taxpayers' money of Washington County. I think you'll be very impressed, and you will understand how that program is working. It is awesome to see, and it's you know, you're buying. I don't know whether it depends on what you're a fan of. You're buying a Cadillac or a Lincoln, and some of us hadn't kicked the tires on it. But anyway, I thank you for your time, Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Ussery.
Thank you very much. Now, what we're talking about here is I've investigated this. This is one of the things that earlier it was mentioned how that the needs in the community. One of the needs is for the kids that are behind in school. This is a great way to help them, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time deal. It's not one-time money, but we're investing in the next generation. We're taking steps to solve those problems that people are telling us they're having. And that's what we're doing tonight when we pass this. Thank you.
Public comments. Did we get a second on your motion? Yeah. So public comments. Public comments. Ms. Patty? Oh, hold tight. Come on, come on.
Good evening. My name is Samuel Lopez, and I'm from Springdale. And I just want to say, I think a lot of things are focused on reactionary type things, but not preventative. I've worked with the judge in a different facet when I was working as a creative director of the station in Springdale. It's kind of like a joint program between the Teen Action Support Center and also the Washington County, the juvenile court system. And so we were able to set up different programs artistically and creatively to teach kids how to do different things and express themselves. See, a lot of kids growing up in poverty just don't have an outlet or transport to expression. So you need to facilitate that. What I mean by that is, like, most kids live in streets that aren't well lit. Like, how are you knowing what your kids are doing if you ain't got street lights? Now, I'm pretty sure we could come up with some street lights. I don't know. Bus stops, I think we need to help. I mean, if you have the ORT, I know Joel's in here frequently. I don't know if he's here behind me because I didn't check the room, but shout out to Joel. He's a cool guy. All this to say, I think that give them what they need. They really do need that. Like, they're not gonna waste your time. They invested in your future. You don't want kids locked up because they turn into future criminals. I mean, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Citizen comments.
Josh Moody, Fayetteville. I'm hopeful but not 100% certain which way this is going to go. So I want to thank J.P. Pond for his words about the Youth Reporting Center. He's absolutely right. It's one of the great diversion programs that's actually changing lives. I want to appreciate J.P. Ecke's words talking about the basically being proactive in working with these kids to put them on the right path, and I see that. I want to remind some of the other JPs that when we're talking about kids and education or juvenile court, any child-serving service, we're not talking about dollars and cents. We're not talking about return on investment next year. We're talking about return on investment 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Those of us that work with kids do not know the effects we're going to make until well beyond. And, sadly, from my point, the cases the stories I hear about later on aren't always positive. That's why I hear about them. But both judges are making an effort, and they need the staffs that they need, that they've asked for. One more thing about the caseload. Over the last few years, it did double. That's why a second judge was awarded to this county by the state. And these juvenile judges also work closely. I know some of your children's safety centers near and dear to your heart, so I want you to recognize that they work with those people to try to help kids that have been in tough situations just as much as delinquency fins, all the foster issues, all these things. It all comes together. It all folds in together. So I hope that we pass as amended. Thank you.
Mr. Moody, public comments.
Sarah Ashley, I'm from Springdale, and I also am a county employee. I'm the prosecutor who handles the FINS cases. And I've sent y'all emails, one or two. I just want to reiterate that these diversions, you talk about diversions, in Judge Warren's courtroom recently, we had a young man who was expelled from school, and I think he might have brought a gun to school. I can't remember all the details, but he was able, what was suggested by a probation officer, can he go to the YRC in Springdale during the day instead of just being at home or maybe running around because his parents had to work. So these diversion programs are very important. Different programs, even after they're on probation, they get a place to go that's safe and they're not out harming themselves or doing anything to our communities. Sorry. The caseloads have more than doubled for me. And I have seen zero increase in the FINS officers. The caseload was enough to double for another judge, so you need to double the staff and give Judge Warren at least 9, because that is the juvenile officer staff. And I would request that you approve the budget that she has requested. She's devoted herself in being in juvenile court before she was a judge, and she's dedicated to helping serve our children. It seems to me, it seems logical to say, let's take 5 from Judge Zimmerman, but you still have that caseload that the 9 people are still dealing with an increased caseload, and they need more staff there. So you can either have, take 5 from Judge Zimmerman, cut her budget, and have her come back next year and let you know those services, these diversion programs, she didn't have enough staff to work on the weekends, which I don't know if y'all knew this, but our juvenile court officers are working on the weekends beyond their 40-hour work week to help keep these programs going. And that is why you should not take 5 people away from Judge Zimmerman's programs that she's already funded, and let Judge Warren have at least 9 people. Let her get her own services, her own programs, and let's have double the amount of services for our families so that we can help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ashley. Citizen comments. Public comments.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments on taking care of children, truly. And I had a son in FINS, excuse me, in 2000, I'm sorry, my name is Maeve Corto, I'm from Elkins. In 2003, and when you don't have enough staff, the effect, like on a weekend, I worked at the Walton Arts Center, had a comp ticket for this son who was basically under house arrest. And when you cannot get hold of an understaffed office, an opportunity to give a little bit of practical relief, the kind of thing you want to do for a kid, he couldn't go without violating the terms of the arrangement for FINS. You're without having some interface with the court and being in compliance, you know, basically keeping your kid in unless you're actually with them. I was working at the Walton. I couldn't be in the front with my son, and my brother couldn't sit with him. We could not get hold of the FINS group. You know, you have to have officers. You have to have someone on a phone. Otherwise, as I told the judge afterwards, and I was grateful that we got some kind of intervention, at least it was a wake-up call in the family. But it's a little bit like having a pup killing your chickens, and you tie the dead chicken around its neck, and you expect the pup to figure out what's going on. But it's not very good training. Some get it, some don't. You have to have people helping with the kids. You've got to have staff. You've got to have staff. And so that was 2003. I've watched in the rurals kids who were, there's a lot of drug trouble out there, and they've got kids. I imagine the caseload has doubled. They've got a lot of right to life going on out there. There are kids getting born. And if you don't have interventions, you don't have good outcomes. That's just all there is to it. And it's not about helping worthy, great kids. They're great kids, but they need intervention, and we need staff. Otherwise, they're going to end up in the well-funded jail. And we've just got to look at it like that. And I appreciate all, pro-life sentiments here, and let's just really be broad-minded about what pro-life is.
Thank you. Public comments. All right, Ms. Patty, we take the roll. All right. Counselor, you want to read that one?
Well, I mean, it would be an ordinance establishing the Washington County annual budget for the fiscal and calendar year of 2022 as amended.
And those two
There were
amendments.
two amendments that were made tonight, and so that's what you'd be voting on.
Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. All right, item number 9, a resolution, the Quorum Court. Counsel, would you read that one by title only? Well, I think we can just go ahead and read that one in entirety. There you go.
Be it resolved by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution of the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, expressing appreciation for Patty Burnett's service to the county. Whereas Patty Burnett was hired in 2017 to the position of Quorum Court Coordinator, and whereas Patty Burnett has faithfully performed her duties assisting the Quorum Court, the county judge, and the citizens of Washington County, Arkansas since her hiring. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1, the members of the Quorum Court express their appreciation to Patty Burnett and commend her for her dedication and service to Washington County. Article 2, on behalf of the citizens of Washington County, Arkansas, the Quorum Court hereby acknowledges the completion of Patty Burnett's duties and expresses its appreciation to her for a job well done.
Ms. Patty, it's been a pleasure, obviously, working with you. Your family is here, and I do want to go ahead and give you the mic if you wanted to say something.
I just want to let you know that it's been an honor to work with each of you, and thank you for this opportunity but I'll miss y'all, but I'll be around.
You're heading over to West Fork, so you're not too far, right? And again, appreciate you and your family for sharing you with us all, Darren and family. Thank you, guys, Miss Judy. Yes, go ahead and call her.
Resolution.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And the ayes have it. That resolution passes. Again, thank you, Ms. Patty. All right, item 25, which is now number 10, item 25. Council, read that one by title only.
An ordinance appropriating $4,843,541.07 from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to various items in various budgets for 2021.
JP Deacons?
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is an investment from the American Rescue Plan to all of our employees. I was talking to one of the elected officials before the meeting, and he said this is rather unprecedented. And he meant that in a really positive way. And I know that you guys have been through something extremely unprecedented with the pandemic and your dedication to the county. And so, it's our pleasure. I hope as a court we can all get behind this and say thank you for your dedication and all that you've done for us as a county with your hard work throughout the pandemic. And I also want to say that there's a lot of conversation tonight. You can hear it about the salaries and where we're at with compensation in the county. And I am dedicating myself. By no means do I think this is a one-time bonus for you guys, and we can move off and not worry about it. I'm dedicating myself next year to working on the salary ranges and doing a lot of good work in that. But right now, it's a great time of year. I hopefully to get this passed that you can enjoy your families. And I want to just say deeply thank you for all your commitment. And I move passage of this item, Judge Wood.
Second. You have a motion and a second. Discussion? Well, before we go to public comments, I too want to say to our employees again, thank you. I'm an HR guy, and so looking at the pay ranges when I first came to the county, my former roles in corporate, you looked at changing those pay ranges every year, at least every 2 years, so you never get too far out of the market. And so, again, my encouragement to the JPs would to consider something like that, that every year we get those market ranges from our consultants. But again, it's been years since we've been able to shift and move that. And so maybe every even year or every odd year, we actually shift and move. So while we may not always hit the total market, we won't be that far behind. And so that would be my encouragement to the court. But again, hats off to our employees for what they've done, obviously, all throughout 2020 and again here in 2021. Again, salute to you, and it has been unprecedented. So again, thank you. And I know our elected officials have been saying the same thing and coming by and visiting with the court to talk about that. So again, salute to you guys. With that, public comments.
Beth Koger, Fayetteville, Arkansas. And Judge, correct me if I'm wrong, we're voting on, this ordinance will give the premium pay, if that's what it is. And I just want to remind the court that at the last meeting, I guess it was, I don't remember what meeting it was, but Budget and Finance, or one of the last meetings, we had people speak as to their employees who had to work remotely from home during the pandemic. And of course, they're not eligible for this under the American Rescue Plan. We know we can't give them money for that. But we can give them premium pay by taking out of our reserves or our general fund. We have the money. We have more money now than we've had in a long time, at least since I've been following the court. So I just asked the court to please consider that. Can we not make that amendment now and do that? Because the people who had to work from home, they would probably have liked to have been working in person, but for whatever reason, I mean, if it were me, I couldn't have come to work. My daughter has lupus, and she could die if she got COVID. I'm sure there's other people in situations like that. So I just ask that you please remember those people, because they worked hard too, and they sacrificed. Thank you.
Public comments.
Hello. Matt Durrett, Fayetteville, Arkansas, work with the prosecutor's office. I'm not going to belabor the point because I think most of you all were here last time I spoke. I do want to thank you all for doing this because it is an investment in our employees, and our employees are what make this county go, what make all our offices go. I would just like to once again bring up that most of my employees are left out. We are included in a portion of it from May on when all the courts open back up, and we fully open back up. But for the better part of a year, my folks are going to miss out on a lot of this money, and I understand that they don't qualify under the criteria that are being used. I get that, but they work hard too, and there are other employees, not just in my office, that are left out. So I appreciate everything you all have done to show recognize the sacrifice by all county employees, and I just ask if there's any way to help out those who didn't have the option, because I hate that my employees are being penalized because of a decision I made. So that was my decision to keep those people at home, to have them work remotely, and they were able to. So I hate that they're not being able to realize the benefit that all other county employees are. So if there's anything that can be done, from the bottom of my heart, I'd be eternally grateful. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Public comments.
I'll be brief because it's been a long night, but Washington County Assessor Russell Hill. Our employees had our backs when our back was against the wall. I know you're going to have their back tonight, so I appreciate that. I was talking with a lady, Marcia, who cleans our office. Marcia is, and this could be a crack that hopefully you guys could fill. Marcia's worked here for a year. She contracted COVID. She works for an employment service. Doesn't qualify, although she works here. So I don't know if there's anything we can do. I'm sure she's not the only one of those cracks that maybe y'all could fill, but as you're looking to cover everything there, don't forget Marcia. Thank you.
Public comments. Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. This ordinance passes.
The ordinance passes. All right. We'll go to item 10. Council, will you read that one by title only?
A resolution of the Washington County Quorum Court supporting the establishment of an income tax credit for full-time law enforcement officers in the state of Arkansas.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'd like to thank Sheriff Hilder for bringing this to our attention. He's been working with legislators down in Little Rock, and they have a committee that's looking at what can we do statewide to help our law enforcement community and with retention and staffing there. One of the things they've come up with is to give law enforcement, people who are employed in law enforcement, a $3,000 state income tax credit. And this resolution would support those efforts in our state legislature, and I think that's a great idea, whatever we can do to support our law enforcement. So I move passage of item number 10.
There's a motion by J.P. Deakins, second by J.P. Ecke, to pass the resolution. Discussion? J.P. Hires? And
Thank you,
then
Judge.
J.P. Washington.
I wanted to bring up something that happened at the last meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee. It was brought to the attention of the court that the language in line 67, quote, back the blue, was problematic language, that it would alienate communities of color. As I was sitting over there and I watched and I saw someone in the horseshoe say, well, I never heard that. And I want you to know that that's okay, that you've never heard of that. That's how we learn and grow. I'm a teacher, and this is how I spend a lot of my life, is with high school students and introducing them to things they've never heard before. And they learn and they grow from it. I was really disappointed there wasn't even a second last week, because the difference is maybe you didn't know that before, but now you know that phrase, back the blue, is problematic for communities of color. Striking the 3 words does not change anything about the ordinance. Nothing. It changes absolutely nothing. The only thing that it does is remove language that seems polarizing and alienates people. If you decide to pass it with the language that's in there, you need to know that you're doing it knowingly. You're telling people in communities of color that you know that this is problematic, but you don't care. I have a lot of faith in my high school kids when they learn something new, and like I say, I have a lot of faith in you guys, and I want you to know that if I if you strike these 3 words, I will support this. I would like to move to strike the 4 words, "to back the blue," from the resolution.
There's a motion to strike "to back the blue" and a second by J.P. Washington. Discussion, all in favor? Oh, J.P. Deakins.
First, I want to say that it seems like in our society right now, we get in so many semantical things and we want to argue about specific wordings and their meanings. And I want to be very clear about this for the where this originated from. This is a statewide resolution. The reason we're hearing it this month and trying to pass it this month is that municipalities and quorum courts all around the state are trying to do this to show support for the legislature as they meet in the next few months. But more importantly, I can understand that people can derive meanings from words and that, but while certain people read problems into these words are also very important to the people who wear, men and women who wear the badge. And I've confirmed that with our sheriff, and I've confirmed that with our law enforcement committee. And so it's not that I'm choosing to disregard somebody's feelings. It's that I'm choosing to very much confirm other people's feelings. And I want it to be very clear that I do back the blue. And those words mean something to the rest of us too. And it's very important for us to pass this with this language. And I would very much vote against this amendment and hope my colleagues would follow in.
J.P. Rio Stafford and then J.P. Johnson.
Thank you, Judge Wood. You know, I support the intent of this ordinance. I think that our law enforcement officers deserve to make a fair wage throughout Arkansas. Too many of them are underpaid. But I think the problem comes when we use catchphrases, when we're very clear in the intent of the ordinance and what it does and what we're supporting. That's great. But when we start to move into the realm of catchphrases where one side uses them one way, and I know this phrase, can be used to say that back the blue can be used to say we support law enforcement. But it has also been used, unfortunately, subsequently in other ways. It's been used, it was used by Kyle Rittenhouse. It was used during the January 6th insurrection. It was used by the George Floyd counter-protesters, and it was used in such a way as to suggest that problems should be swept under the rug. And so I think that some people see that use of the phrase, because phrases can be used in different ways by different people. And so I think this ordinance would be much cleaner and much simpler and much more accurate if we just do without the use of catchphrases that can be interpreted in different ways by different people. Thank you.
J.P. Johnson and then J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. There's no way I can support striking the words "back the blue" from this ordinance. I absolutely back the blue, and 2 reasons that we absolutely should leave it in there are called Officer Carr and Officer Apple. Thank you.
J.P. Madison.
So we have one person of color sitting around this horseshoe, and she has said to us that words in a resolution that have been brought forward to this organization hurt her opinions. And I'm sorry, I meant JP's is what I meant. I'm sorry, the voting members. And I'm having a hard time that we're just willing to dismiss her beliefs. I mean, no one knows what it's like in J.P. Washington's shoes. No one knows what it's like for a person of color to live in Northwest Arkansas, in the United States. And she shared a simple request and said, this is from my point of view, that these words are harmful, and we can support the police, we can support law enforcement with this resolution without using words that are harmful to people. And that's simple. We have a colleague sitting here saying that, and you're saying, no, I'm going to leave the words in that offend you, when we can do it either way. We can pass it either way. That bothers me, that if somebody on this court says something offends me, and then they don't, and the rest of us just ignore that. We're not being very empathetic. And so I support JP Hires' motion that was seconded by JP Hires, seconded by JP Washington, so that this court can show its support for JP Washington.
JP Ecke and then JP Pine.
Thank you, Judge. All due respect to Ms. Madison, she did not hear the conversation that I had with JP Washington before the court started. And did we not, JP Washington, have a conversation about taking offense and that no offense was intended? And we had an honest Christian conversation. I wanted her to know that I support her and I care about her. Other people, I'm not going to redefine words. Words mean what they mean, and that's all there is to it. Back the Blue has been around for years and years and years and years and years and years. It's intended to be a positive, community-building, secure feeling of the community because we back our officers and the officers back us. I'm a person of color as well. I'm not Cherokee, like most people think, but I am a person of color. I'm a minority. I'm not offended. I will not take offense because then that means that I hold unforgiveness in my heart towards something. And I know JP Washington does not take offense and then hold unforgiveness towards the rest of the court because we did not agree with her. That's not why we're here. We're here to say we support what Sheriff Helder is doing, that we support law enforcement, and I don't want to redefine words. They're not catchphrases. They have meaning, and there's men and women's lives behind that meaning, that they put their lives on the line for us every day. And I am voting for this because I support them, and I do back the Blue as a minority. Thank you, Judge.
JP Pine and then JP Washington.
About all I had to say about it has been said. If I had anything else I could do respectfully, it would be to yield my time to you, Judge Wood. Thank you.
JP Washington.
Thank you, Judge.
You should be on.
It's red on the thing. I think our mic's broken. Try again. Key it up again. Hit the.
I'll try it.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I just want to clarify some things. First of all, it has never been my intent to be the voice of every person of color. So I just want to start there. Secondly, when I brought this to your attention, I did so because the terminology back the blue does have a double entendre. So just because it doesn't mean the same thing to everyone in this room does not mean that the language is not offensive to some residents of Washington County, which is the point that I was trying to convey. As far as being offensive, I do try to live my life in such a way that I do not hold offense and unforgiveness in my heart. So when all of that happened last week, I immediately dealt with that. But just because I am not personally still offended by that, that does not mean that this language is not harmful. It does not mean that this language is not divisive. It doesn't mean that this language is not tacky, and it does not mean that this language is inappropriate. Because if we know that 3 simple words that everyone is saying is just words, but if these 3 words can be harmful to any resident of Washington County, what is the point in digging in our heels and using them? And that was the point of my comments. Once again, I am not the spokesperson for every community of color. There may be people of color that find this not offensive, and that's fine. The point that I was making was that there are some people who will read this resolution and they will make a judgment about Washington County. They will make a judgment about this quorum court. They will make a judgment about the type of people on this court because we intentionally choose to use words that we know are harmful. I thank you, JP Hires. I thank you, JP Riel Stafford. I thank you, JP Madison. Once again, I'm not trying to be the voice for every person of color. I'm just appealing to my colleagues saying that these 3 words will not change the meaning of this resolution. If we delete these 3 words, that does not mean that we do not back our law enforcement, which I wholeheartedly do. It does not change the meaning of this in any way. So why continue to use it? And I mentioned earlier, I do work really hard at not being offended, but I have to say that I'm disappointed because if I say to my colleague that you're doing something that could be harmful to people of color and your response is, it's just words, it's not a catchphrase, we're going to use it anyway, that gives me pause. So I just wanted to say that, and that's all I have to say about it.
JP Washington, any other discussion? Public comments?
Gladys Tiffany, Fayetteville. I just want to make the point that I think we are just very, very fortunate that JP Washington is present on this court, and for your determination and your courage and your clear thinking in situations that are, there's a lot of pressure on you in certain circumstances, and this clearly is one of them. I want you to know how grateful I am, and I know there are a lot of other people who are, and I hope the court is also grateful.
Oh, that was on amendment. That's all right. I'm sorry. We're voting on your JP Hires. Who did the amendment? JP Hires. JP Hires asked to amend the motion of this resolution. It was seconded by JP Washington. That was the discussion. All in favor of the amendment to the resolution? Aye. Those opposed? No. Let's do hands. Those in favor, hands up. Those opposed? Okay, so the amendment fails. All right, so we're back to the resolution as it was written, with the language as is. Now we go back to any discussion here at the court. All right, public comments.
Josh Moody, Fayetteville. I'm disappointed to see the amendment failed. I hate to be one of those people that say, but I have friends that are. But I have friends that, long-term friends that have do currently and have served in law enforcement. And to shorthand it, I could certainly say I back the blue. I want those people to be safe and get back to their families at night. I could also say support our troops. What I mean by that is let's not just send them into battle with weaponry and protection, but actually take care of them when they get home. And sometimes when we hear support our troops, that doesn't have the same meaning. The person who sponsored this is using nationally divisive rhetoric, shorthand, just like he did this summer, so that he can get his name in the paper. It's thinly veiled as that. I think pretty much everybody around the horseshoe is aware of that. So again, I can shorthand something. I can use catchphrases, pro-life, back the blue, support the troops. When I don't have time to explain myself, this resolution is 75 lines long. It's a good resolution other than those 4 words. I don't understand what the sticking point is on getting rid of those. So even though the amendment has failed, I guess we're going to go through with the vote. And I hope that people keep this in mind as they vote. That if it can't be shortened by 4 words, then the whole thing's obviously meaningless. And I don't want it to be meaningless because I understand where it comes from. Supply and demand, taking care of law enforcement as a statewide action. Thank you.
Public comments?
Well, I'm Maeve Corto from Elkins. This is a pretty functional discussion, and it was a good thing. We need it to be a functional family. Anyone who's been around a dysfunctional family is well aware that there are ways that families can be run where it's pretty autocratic, where things are just done a certain way. But this was sort of a biblically minded group, more or less. Remember the Apostle Paul, he knew very well he didn't have to be circumcised, but to get a good hearing for everyone, he was all things to all men. And that's a pretty radical thing, but Timothy, got circumcised so that to be all things to all men and truly pro-life, it's good to, what was it? South Carolina took down the Confederate flag after the killing in the black church. Dylan Roof was carrying a Confederate flag. Now, not everyone feels like that about the Confederate flag. We're pretty proud of, being Southern. But we do have to, here in the Quorum Court, we don't have to be run by national prejudice and stuff. I mean, we don't have to be like that. We should be good neighbors, and we should care about each other. We should be doing that. And I'm glad we had this discussion this week because we didn't have it last week. So we've come that far. And maybe we'll think a little bit about really not standing on our rights and privilege to just do whatever we want, but to really think, how we hurting other people. We should do that. And we can do that. And anyway, I'm glad we had the discussion.
Public comments?
I need to say June Wood, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I wasn't going to really say anything, and JP Washington, I'm glad you said what you said as far as back the blue. I respect what you said, and what you said makes a lot of sense. But I want to be able to say that as an African American, I'm not offended by back the blue at all. And I am just at a point where I don't like when people put us all in one bucket and say that all African Americans are against back the blue and that we have an issue with it. I don't have an issue with it. And then sometimes when the JP come up there and just says that one African American and totally dismisses the county judge here, that there, I don't know what that was all about, but I think that was unnecessary to even do that. But back the blue to me means a lot because we're originally from Chicago. And then you have people in New York where they welcome the cops. I mean, you have riots and things like that going on where they're destroying businesses and homes. And you're going to tell me that you don't back the blue? If someone broke into your home, who's the first person you're going to call? Is a police officer. Fayetteville, Arkansas, what is the number we have? Are we the top 1 or 5? What is it? We're the top in the United States of places to live. And why is that? It's because you don't have criminals walking in your house every 8 minutes. And if they do, who do you call? You call a police officer. So for a person to say that they're offended by back the blue, for you to say that you're offended by someone actually protecting you, and I just don't get it. And I'm just tired of people putting all African Americans, and yes, Chandra, JP Washington, I'm glad you separated it and said you're not offended, but there are other people that are offended. And I am one of the people in the audience that is not offended about it. So I'm the other African American that's not offended by that phrase. And because you separated it, you said that there are people that are offended, and I'm the other one that's not offended. And I live in J.P. Madison's district, and I want you to be able to say that. I want you to be able to know that when you say things like that, you also representing me. And I don't like when you do that because you're representing me and I'm part of that district. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Public comments.
Do I have to repeat my name?
Yes.
Okay, Samuel Lopez, and from Springdale. I just want to say that this whole region markets itself as a diverse, inclusive, and equitable, or if you want to say, place to live, right? So, I mean, I think I have no problem with Back the Blue, but what I do have a problem with is like, you're marketing something and then you're not necessarily putting the words in translation. Words means a lot. Like, you know, it's what makes the law. It's a word. And I have no problem with backing the blue. I think our officers are necessary. I think that if anything, you should fund them more so that they do their job the best that they can do it at. The thing is, if you're trying to get people of color, and that ranges from a different spectrum, religious beliefs, all types of things, like, make it more inclusive. I mean, it doesn't have to be Back the Blue. It could be totally something else. I mean, y'all are smart people. I don't see why y'all can't come up with a better phrase than just Back the Blue. Like, that sounds very, like, rudimentary. I feel like some elementary kid came up with it. But, I mean, you know, who am I to say that? Either way, all I know is if you want to be a diverse, inclusive, and equitable place or region to live in, I think that you could do a better job. Appreciate y'all.
Public comments.
Oh, my name's Jacob Copeland. Now, I don't particularly live in Washington County anymore. I am an employee of Washington County. There's a whole lot of political stuff that's been going on as of late, you know, the last couple of years.
Speak up a little bit more on your mic.
All right. There's a lot of political things that have been going on the last couple of years. I stand back and I get to watch it. Some things that get to be disheartened with, other things not so much. Backing the blue, whenever you get out there and you see that, you know, you're backing your police officers. The police, whether they're in the sheriff's department or the city or whoever, you know, it's not, you're backing this group of people. It can be white, it can be black, it can be anybody. You know, you're giving a good support to, well, you just have to forgive me, but you're giving good support to our law enforcement. Whenever you get out there and you support some of the other groups that I see, you know, you support things that's not necessarily right, but I don't see why there should be such controversy over supporting our law enforcement. You know, just backing the blue is just, I believe it's just a good way to take every single one of them and come in there and just show support. You know, I don't think it should be a divisive thing, but it is, you know, anyhow. I just wanted to say that it should be a thing of support. That's all.
Public comments. All right, Ms. Patty.
Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Ussery. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. This resolution passes.
All right, the resolution passes. We'll move on to item 11. Council, will you read that one by title only?
A resolution of the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, certifying local county government endorsement of Central States Manufacturing to participate in the Consolidated Incentive Tax Back Act of 2003.
J.P. Johnson.
Thank you, Judge. This resolution is to endorse Central States manufacturing so that they can apply for tax credits in accordance with the Department of Finance Administration. They're a company that was established in Northwest Arkansas in Washington County 35 years ago. They have 300 employees today. The addition that they are planning will add about 20 employees, $1 million plus of payroll. I move we pass this resolution.
There's a motion and a second to pass item 11. J.P. Simons.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a business that is bringing not only job growth but tax revenue to Washington County. So I'm in full favor of this. This Create Rebate program is one that is greatly utilized by our chambers of commerce to recruit and support businesses.
J.P. Simon. Can we pull the doors as people are exiting? Okay, go ahead.
This Create Rebate program is greatly utilized by our chambers of commerce to recruit and support businesses here. That the sole intention is to create job growth and thereby tax revenue into our cities and our communities. So I'm in full favor of this.
Any other discussion? Public. Oh.
Thank you, Judge Wood. Thank you, Judge Wood. I guess I have a procedural question about this. Did this go through a committee? Should it have gone through a committee?
They don't.
It's a resolution. Okay.
That's it. Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. This resolution passes.
All right. That passes. Resolution passes. Item 12. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for the MOA 2021 project.
Memorandum of Understanding. J.P. Lemming.
What this is a Hmong group, and they're serious.
Pull your mic over. There you go.
This is the Hmong group, and they're serious about playing soccer, and this is basically just a 40-acre field that they've created a road in, and they've put bathrooms in their gazebos, and I just moved to pass.
Second. Got a motion and a second to pass item 12. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comment? Oh, it's on this first reading. I'm sorry.
Second reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules and move to a second reading. A second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Council, will you read that one for a second?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
I want to move to the third and final reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules and move to a final reading. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. Council, will you read that one for a third and final?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
There's a motion to pass and a second by J.P. Pond. Any discussion? Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments.
Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I don't have anything against soccer. This sounds actually
quite interesting. But I wish that there would be a policy or there be a discussion within this court on how we do readings. I do find that when we are doing rezones and we see best practices in other areas, so the city of Fayetteville has lots of rezonings that happen, but they do not push things forward 3 readings in 1 meeting. And I think that just does a good service. It's neighborly, that was brought up earlier, just to give folks, we all have busy lives, we're still faced with the pandemic, and just give folks the opportunity that maybe didn't know that this was happening to hear about it. I would ask that you'd leave this, and if you don't tonight, to talk about in the future what our policy or what our stance is on not moving things forward, hopefully in 3 readings, just knowing that neighbors need time sometimes to hear about these projects. Thank you.
Public comments. Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Jim Wilson. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. Yes. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Yes, Bill Usry. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan. Yes. Shonda Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. Yes. Suki Hires. Yes. This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. That ordinance passes. Item 13. Council, will you read that one by title only?
This ordinance on its first reading as well. An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for Treetop View project.
And that would be J.P. Wilson.
Yes, the Treetop View ordinance calls for a conditional use permit to put a self-service ice sales unit at 18394 South Highway 170. I'm unaware of any objections to this from the neighbors. I move for suspension of the rules and to go to the second reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules, move to the second reading. Second. That's second by J.P. Lemming. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, Council, will you read that one for a second?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Yes, I move for suspension of the rules and to go to the third and final reading. Second.
There's a motion to suspend the rules, move to a third and final, second by J.P. Lemming. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, Council, will you read that one for a third and final?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
I move for the approval of this ordinance and for items 13.1 and 13.2.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve items 13. Discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Jim Wilson. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. Yes. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Yes, Bill Usry. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan. Yes. Shonda Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. Yes. Suki Hires. Yes. This ordinance passes.
Not this one. That one passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 13 passes. Item 14, Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for Koger's Corner Food Truck Court.
And that would be J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is for a food truck court that would go in right off Highway 412. If you're going out towards the 412 bridge, there's a stoplight there in the Sonora Baptist Church. It was approved unanimously by all the planning board members that were there. I'm personally excited about this. This lot has been quite a blight on the area, and I'm excited to get somebody to develop it and put something in there. So I would move to suspend the rules and move this to the second reading.
Second. There's a motion to suspend the rules, move to the second reading. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Council, will you read that one for a second?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
I would move that we suspend the rules and move this to the third and final reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules, move to a third and final, second by J.P. Lemming. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Council, will you go ahead and read that one for a third and final?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
I move passage of item number 14.
There's a motion to pass item 14, a second by J.P. Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Public comments?
My name's Lorinda Koger from Springdale, Arkansas, and I am the owner and the one bringing this motion in front of the court. And I just wanted to answer any questions that anybody might have. Also, it was brought up in the Planning Commission that there needed to be a evaluation from the health department on the septic system. And I just wanted y'all to know that I do have that evaluation, and that inspection is approved by Mr. Randall Wiggins. It was sent into the health department today, so it hasn't had time to be filed yet, but I do have it.
Any other, that's good, thank you.
Okay.
Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 14 passes. All right, next on the agenda, we have an appeal by ER Mobile Service. That's the second request I got. Let's go ahead and take 5. Kurt, we'll rejoin in 5 minutes. Sorry.
Right.
Thanks for doing all this electronics. I can barely do the Zoom.
It's hard. Hey, that's okay. We're getting there. You hanging in? You need 1, 2, and staff report, right?
That's right.
Just read it from here.
Okay,
Then
so
you have the other tab.
oh, you have it up there, tab. Okay, yeah. So let's start with that. Okay, perfect.
Oh, you want to start here?
Yeah, I'll start with the staff report. So you can just leave that open, I guess. Or yeah, move it over. Okay.
Which one is the second?
So staff report, and then is first.
Map
And then-
one
yeah,
and
then
map 2.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Perfect. Oh, sorry. So there's something else up on the screen.
She will
Keep it up there a lot.
Yeah. When you talk, we switch to button.
I push the left button or the red button?
No, you don't have to.
No, to talk, I mean.
Oh, I don't know. Here.
Maybe it's already on. Hello? Yeah, it's on.
So, Miss Patty, we want to make sure that you're around.
That's why they pay us big bucks. Right. Yeah, I heard $200 at least. Yeah, it's that's state law. It's required. They $200. Yeah. Oh, it makes it.
Yeah, we got gas.
Even. You have to pay that much. Be against the law. Uh-oh. She's been on. No, I know. I remember she was.
Actually, I don't anymore. We were in the district.
Good thing. That's right. It takes all of it. Now, this is not in your district. It's over basically in Tawny Town. I think technically it's Fayetteville, but this property's really so. Got turned down by the planning board. Right, 4-2 vote. They got turned down. I think it's because neighbors complained. I don't think their complaints are really got any merit. Basically, it's a truck engine repair shop, right? Very small, but it's a mixed-use area. It's residential. There's what I'll show on here. There's a couple other businesses there. There's a fabricator right next door. There is another truck repair shop down the street. Yeah, I'm sure it was.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and continue. So we now have the appeal from ER Mobile Services here. We're gonna go ahead and ask our planning team to come on up and do the presentation. Ms. Cedar, are you here? So first, again, as Cedar gets seated here, we'll hear from a presentation from planning, and then after that, we'll see if there's any agencies here, whether it be Department of Health or whoever that may be here to speak. After that, we'll then let the applicant share any comments, and then there'll be the public to speak to this particular appeal. So with that, Ms. Cedar.
Thank you. Sorry. I just want to give everyone a heads up in case my voice doesn't last. I've been at home with my 6-year-old who has strep, so. So the ER Mobile Services Conditional Use Permits was presented to the Planning Board at the August 11th, 2021 Special Planning Board meeting. At that meeting, 6 members of the surrounding community spoke in opposition of the proposal. They voiced concerns about potential noise from the semi-trucks and air compressors, trucks and other vehicles. They've considered an eyesore. They're worried about the industrialization of their small, quiet community, and other members just gave the quote, "I don't like it." So Planning Board member Philip Humbard made the motion to deny the CUP. It was seconded. Out of the 7 that were in attendance, 5 members voted against and 2 were in favor. This is the presentation that was given to the Planning Board members at the Planning Board meeting. The ER Mobile Services Conditional Use Permit, CUP. This proposal is located within the northwestern portion of the county. It is just outside of the city of Tawnytown. The project site is located off of Harmon Road. And here's a close-up of the site location. The applicant is requesting conditional use permit approval to allow the operation of a mechanic truck shop that specializes in semi-trucks and dump trucks. The parcel is approximately 2.5 acres in size, but the applicant states that they will utilize no more than 1 acre for their proposed shop and business. Along the back portion of the property, between the existing building and the property boundary, the applicant intends to have parking for approximately 10 vehicles. There will be 2 employees, which will work Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday hours will be from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. The proposed shop is located along the western side of Harmon Road, near the intersection of Arbor Acres. This is the shared access drive from Harmon Road. The proposed site is on the left side of the screen, and that is not my finger, that is Nathan Crouch's finger. The proposed shop is located along, I just said that. So a pull-through workshop building already exists on the property. This will be utilized for the mechanic shop should the CUP be approved. The applicant states that the building is insulated, so noise should be dampened. There are no existing residential buildings on this property. This is the slight distance looking north along Harmon Road. This is looking south. The black circle represents a 1-mile buffer around the subject parcel, which is outlined in red. The areas depicted in green are standard agricultural single-family residential parcels, 1 unit per acre zoning. Areas in the hash gray along the right side of the screen are city zonings. The blue represents existing conditional use permits. The subject parcel is outlined in red. Directly to the north on an adjacent parcel is a current CUP. This CUP was granted in 2014. The project name was Block Auction CUP. The applicant for the Block Auction CUP was Mr. Paul Coben Jr. He owned the property up until 2018. At the time of this presentation, Cindy and Kelly Boger were the current owners of the property. Though the property does not seem to be used for an auction site, a search of nearby businesses show that this is a fabrication business. It came up as Triple B Fabrication. So within the 1-mile buffer, again, that's the black circle, is the waste management landfill. And due to the landfill facility, there is heavy truck traffic in this area along Harmon Road. The proposed mechanic truck is estimated to bring in an additional 5 to 10 vehicles a day. Staff does not feel this increase should impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the area, nor should 5 to 10 vehicles cause the flow of traffic to slow. Along the southern part of the property is a row of screening trees. There's also another row of screening trees along the western border of the property. And being that parking will be behind the existing building, staff does not think additional screening along the western and southern border will be necessary. Also, screening should not be necessary along the eastern portion of the property. Notifications were sent to property owners within 300 feet. Staff at the time only received 2 official comments via email. Both of these were in opposition of the project. However, at the planning board meeting, or maybe a few days before the planning board meeting, there was a petition of approximately 76 signatures on it, which represent 76 individuals that oppose the project. This was given to the planning board members at the meeting. The recommendation at the time was that staff has reviewed the CUP submittal documents and puts forth the following conditions of approval. And you should have received a copy of those conditions. I'm here for any questions. I think the applicant is also here, and there may be members of the public also here.
So you ready to take questions from the
Yes, sir.
court? Well, let me ask, are there any agencies here to speak on behalf of the project? No? Okay. Quorum Court members, any questions for Ms. Sita? J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Judge.
And then J.P. Wilson.
Have they met the recommendations that you made for them? Did they meet your recommendations?
Most of these recommendations are contingencies, such as, for example, the Washington Water Authority condition. These are comments that were submitted to us during the tech review portion. Basically, it says that if it's going to be used for commercial purposes, it needs to be in compliance. Even if the CUP, so the way it works is if the CUP is approved by both the planning board and the quorum courts, it means the CUP is approved. However, final approval does not happen until they meet all the conditions. It just means they have approval to work on their project. Most applicants do not want to
invest.
Exactly, until they know the CUP has been. So we tell them that we will not issue a letter of approval, and we will say that they are not in compliance with the CUP unless they meet the conditions.
Okay, so all of those that talk about water, because I am concerned about the wastewater disposal, and I can't see this
It's
very
very
well.
small.
So all of those are contingent. So all the
Yes.
water concerns.
Yes, which means if there's, for example, if there's one condition that they don't meet, again, using the Washington Water as my example, if they cannot meet the minimum plumbing, if they're not in compliance with the Arkansas Plumbing Code, Section 403, minimum plumbing facilities, and include necessary restrooms, lavatories, and drinking fountains for employees, then they are not in compliance with their CUP, and we will not issue an approval letter. And if they decide to continue with their project, we would consult with our chief of staff, county attorney, and see what we could do to have them cease.
In your opinion, how cooperative have they been with your?
They've been
with the
very
planning board?
cooperative.
And they're showing willingness to make this kind of investment if the permit is granted?
Yes, sir. Ma'am, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My apologies. I was thinking of chief of staff still in my head. But
Okay, thank you, Judge.
thank you.
J.P. Wilson and then J.P. Deacons. Are you?
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to make sure I'm clear. Are they saying they're going to put in a septic field and have bathrooms for the employees if they go in?
Yes.
Thank you.
J.P. Deacons.
I know that, of course, there's some, thank you, Judge Wood. I know there's some concerns listed here in your report about noise and eyesore and that type of thing, but were there any specific mitigating factors that maybe could be considered by the applicant, by the neighbors? Is there any discussion, or was it just an all or nothing thing in the process?
The applicant is open to screening and to, mitigating some of the visual concerns. A lot of the discussion at the time was about the fabrication business
Right.
that the neighbors consider a quote-unquote eyesore, because that particular fabrication business has not had a CUP, so it's not
Yeah.
in compliance, and
Well, and that's one of
we
the
weren't
things
able
one
to-
of the things I see in the materials, but that bothers me to have that
Mhm.
conversation. I mean, how can we judge one applicant by another property? I don't think that that's, you know, I mean, what I'm saying is I'm caution us to even consider that because this is a completely separate applicant, is it
Mhm.
not?
It is.
Okay. So other than that, there wasn't really any specific suggestions brought up to the applicant that they were not open to. Okay. Thank you, Judge Wood.
Any other questions from Ms. Sita? All right, thank you, Ms. Sita. We want to have the applicant, if you want to come, you can. You can tell us who you are, and you have 30 minutes, and you don't have to use all that, but you can.
I won't use it all, I promise. Good evening, Judge. Thank you. My name is Asa Hutchinson III, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant, which is ER Mobile Services, and it's owned and operated by Mr. Ellie Rivera, and he's here as well. Of course, he's open to take comments and questions. I don't want to repeat what was already presented, but to your point, JP, there's already a fabrication shop in operation that's just adjacent to our property. The complaints generated by the neighbors seem to be focused more on that facility, not on ours. But more importantly, it reflects that this is not just a residential neighborhood. There are other businesses operating even on a larger scale than what ours would operate. So it's not inconsistent or incompatible with the existing use of surrounding properties, which is one of the main criteria for, of course, a CUP. What Mr. Rivera's shop does, just to be clear, is it's a truck engine repair shop. It doesn't do any body work. It doesn't dismantle things and reassemble. It does not do oil changes, doesn't take tires on and off. In fact, half its business isn't even conducted on the property. It's a mobile services unit, so it goes to wherever the vehicle is disabled, whether it's on the side of the road or someone's house. The other half of the business that is performed on site is about 2 to 3 trucks a week. You're talking about having in that shop, and all the work done on those 2 or 3 trucks each week is done indoors. The doors to the building are closed, the truck is inside, the repair work is done totally inside. And as mentioned earlier, it's insulated. We took some noise readings, and I provided that in the packet on this appeal that shows very low decibel levels of noise. There are occasionally trucks outside of our facility that are waiting to get repositioned on the inside, you know, for the next truck to leave, but that's very temporary, and of course the applicant is open to taking some sort of mitigating steps such as screening or whatnot, but it certainly is not inconsistent with the neighboring property's use at the fabricator site. There are only 2 employees, so you don't have a large number of personal vehicles parked there. Most of the tools that are used by the 2 employees are just hand tools. Sometimes electric impact wrenches are used, but very rarely would like an air gun or air tool be used. Compressor is there on site, an air compressor in the few cases where an air gun is needed to remove a part from a vehicle to get access to the engine, but it's not like a repair shop that you're thinking of that works on trucks and cars all day long and you're running air guns, you know, all day and you're taking on and off wheels. Get on the map here. Well, actually, go back to the staff report that Ms. Sita covered. It was the staff's recommendation for the CUP to be granted with certain conditions. And of course, the client is agreeable to those conditions and would meet those conditions. And some of those have been pointed out already that will occur once the CUP is granted. the bathrooms will be installed and the compliance with the plumbing code and such will all be satisfied. But in terms of what the staff found, and this report was written by Mr. Crouch, and he's in the audience and would be happy to take questions as well to provide any information the court might want. But if you'll look at item number 4, it says that the criteria under the Washington County Code of Ordinances is the proposed use must be compatible with the surrounding area. And the staff found that the character of the building fits into its context and with conditions should not negatively impact the neighborhood. Scrolling down a little bit here, you'll see also that on number 5, of course, the use is not considered dangerous by nature and may add an additional few vehicles on Harmon Road. Again, our experience has been about 2 to 3 extra vehicles a week is what our facility generates. On item number 6, what staff found is that a small mechanic shop should not impact the residential and farming type land uses already in place in the area. Staff feels a small mechanic shop will not impair property values. And then on number 7, finally, the staff doesn't feel that the increased traffic will impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the area. So staff supported the passage of the or the adoption of the CUP with conditions. As Ms. Cita cited, there were some neighbors that appeared at the meeting and voiced some objections. Most of those, as has been pointed out, were aimed at the neighboring property in terms of eyesore and having a large number of trucks. But just to be clear, on this map you can see right here. Excuse me.
Can you zoom in?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out here.
Top middle of the screen, the plus sign.
Ah, perfect. Thank you. So over here where my arrow is the client's property. That's the shop that is existing, was built by preceding property owner. Just here is the neighboring fabrication facility that is already in existence. And then this is Harmon Road right here that's been discussed. If you go up Harmon Road, turn to the right, you'll see another facility right here. And this is actually a competing truck repair service. This has been here, it's called Huck's Garage, for about 30 years. And you can see there's already trailers outside and a number of trucks and a much larger building servicing more trucks than we do. My understanding, that's been grandfathered in and doesn't require a CUP, so it doesn't have one. But the point is that the use of our facility is very consistent, not incompatible at least, with the use of other properties in the area. This Huck's Garage is about 1,000 feet as a crow flies from my client's property. And this is a larger view of the area. Again, over here where my cursor is the client's property. This is the landfill. Of course, it's going to be expanded closer out towards my client's property. But the way large trucks that are taking materials to the landfill will travel to the landfill will be over here on Harmon Road by client's property and near along Alcorn Acres Road. So this road already here has quite a bit of traffic from heavy trucks, much larger and heavier and louder than the few vehicles that come to be serviced at my client's facility. So given the adjacent fabrication facility and the neighboring truck repair facility, and then of course the landfill, you've got land that's already being used in somewhat of an industrial way. You've got heavy traffic, you get loud noises, big trucks. My client's use is not going to materially increase any of that, and certainly would not be inconsistent with the existing use. So I suggest the staff got it right on the recommendation to approve the CUP, and that the use of the land is consistent with the criteria set forth in the Code of Ordinances. So be happy to take any questions you may have.
J.P. Lemming.
How big is the building that's there?
It's 3,200 square feet.
Well, how big is it? Wall size and length? Does it just
Oh.
got one door to get in the side?
It's 40 by 80 foot.
40 by 80. Is it, how tall is the sidewalls?
How tall is the sidewalk?
He says 12 feet.
So has it got one door in it? Got two doors in it? And you're gonna put all your trucks inside you say you're gonna work on? Okay. What's gonna happen to your used tires, your used motor oil, and when you wash trucks outside, what's gonna happen to your oil and grease that runs off of them?
Might get him the
Well,
microphone.
yeah, I'm just bringing this up because you're bringing Huck's garage up, and he's got pits. When he washes his truck, it goes into an ADEQ certified pit. All of his oil and stuff does. His shop is, it'll hold 3 semis inside. Inside, you can't even see them. And Huck's been there longer than anybody out there. Used to be chicken houses out there, and wasn't no houses around him at all. And
Right.
Huck's a good neighbor out there.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
But when you're starting a new truck shop versus a fabrication shop where they're cutting steel, they don't have oil and grease, they don't have noisy trucks. Is this business already operating? Because you said owner and operator of the business.
Yes, it has been
So
operating.
it's illegally operating without a CUP.
No, it's not illegal operating without a CUP.
Okay. But I don't believe that shop's big enough to put all his trucks inside. And I believe there's a lot more hurdles you're gonna have to jump over to get it certified to where you can have a semi pulled in there from a wreck and oil leaking all over the grass out there. That's not cool. You're gonna have to have pits, you're gonna have to have a place to put your motor oil. Your used tires you have out there, it's full of water, it's gonna have mosquitoes in it. There's a lot more to a truck shop than there are a fab shop.
Understood that, and certainly we would not be violating any ADQ rules or not having a facility that's equipped to handle a semi that comes in, as you were saying, that's got oil all over it. I mean, we're responsible, good neighbor. We're going to be just as good as Huck's and the fabricator are in terms of a neighbor. I mean, we can't, though, go and get all of those things you're talking about, a pit and all the different materials we need to get now before we get the CUP, and this has to come first in order for us then to go to those agencies and get everything we need approved, and for inspections to come out from different agencies to make sure we're up to par. We have to have this step done first. And as Ms. Sita said, if we don't comply after we get the CUP, then we get shut down. But we can't even prove that we're going to be a good neighbor and good operator until we get the CUP. And we're not complaining that Huck's is inappropriate or that it shouldn't be there or that it's operating badly. My only point is that the neighbors were objecting because they thought this would be increased noise. They didn't talk about oil runoff. They were just talking about noise and eyesores. And I was addressing those concerns that we're not going to add any more trucks than what's already visible to the neighbors out there anyway. And we're not going to be adding any more noise that's already heard by the neighbors anyway. And the eyesores they're talking about wasn't us. So that was my only reason I brought up Huck's, and I think Ms. Cedar brought up Triple B. But we're not complaining about their operation. We think it's great to have a competitor there, but it just shows that the neighbors are used to that kind of activity.
You're good. J.B. Simons.
Thank you, Judge. My concern here is that 50% of the justification of the compatibility of your client is predicated on an adjacent business that's out of compliance. And the other 50% of your justification is predicated on a business that is grandfathered in. And so my question is you take both of those examples out, and does your client still fit the suitability of that area?
Well, it's hard to take those out of the area because they are in the area. I'm not saying that my client should be legally granted the CUP because
there's an illegal operation or because there's somebody grandfathered in. I'm saying that the neighborhood and that surrounding area has, over the last 30 years, been used to living with and near heavy truck traffic through to the landfill, to Huck's, to the fabricator, been used to dealing with noise, been used to dealing with, a lot of traffic. It's not that my client's going to come in and totally change this makeup of that neighborhood. That neighborhood's been that way as long as Huck's been there, I think 30 years. And then the fabricator's been there, and then however long the landfill's been there. So my only point is it's not changing this nature of those surrounding properties, which is what the planning staff at the county level also determined, that this was not inconsistent with surrounding areas. It, quote, fits into the context. And that's, obviously the planning staff's job is to make sure that the proposed use is consistent with the uses of existing properties. So that decision was made and wasn't cited to, the basis of that was not cited to Huck's or to Triple B fabrication. It was just a general assessment made. I'm just drawing out those specific examples.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? JP Dennis.
Thank you, Judge. Simple question is probably answered in here somewhere, and I didn't see it. Who was there first? The neighbors with their homes in their neighborhood, or the building that's now being used as a truck?
The building that my client occupies, I do not know when that was built. It was built by a previous owner.
But not for this purpose, was it?
Well, I'm not sure what the purpose was, because it's definitely industrial. It's got 12-foot tall walls. It's 40 by 80, and it's got 2 bay doors on it. So if I had to guess, given the proximity to the current fabrication facility that's just across the street, it was built whenever that fabrication business was being built, because I think the property at that time was owned by the same person. But that's me speculating.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm coming from is I believe a person should be able to do with their land what they want to, up until the point where it affects the neighborhood that's there. And so if the neighborhood was there first, then they kind of moved into where it didn't fit. And so I'm leaning more towards the neighbors if that's the case. But also the other thing I'll say is surely they're planning on growing their business. Every business in Northwest Arkansas is growing. So if you grow your business, then you're multiplying everything that you've talked about. The number of trucks, the number of sounds, the number of everything. Everything increases. And so, of course, be careful what you wish for. I used to look at the pasture, and a guy he wanted to keep used cars, and I complained about it, and then he sold it, and now they built a whole housing addition. I can't see the mountain because all the houses are in front of me. So it's difficult out in the county. It really is. I know that. And we normally just, you lived in the county, you did what you pretty much wanted to, but it's changed. And so thank you for the information.
Sure, and I know Ms. Ceda mentioned there was a petition, I think, signed by 76 or so neighbors. I don't know that all those are actual neighbors of this property. I think that petition may have been generated at a church or somewhere else, but I think there were only 6 that appeared at the planning board meeting, and I think they might have been represented by an attorney. But certainly, I'm sure some neighbors were there before the building was built where my client occupies. And he wants to be very respectful of disturbing them, and certainly won't want to make any more noise once already there. And he's open to conditions. I mean, you can put conditions on there that he can't expand the building, that he can without approval from the planning board of this court, or put restrictions on hours of operations or something like that in order to make sure it doesn't get out of control at some point.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Hutchinson. We're going to go ahead and ask those who are in opposition to come forward. You have 30 minutes to come and
Good evening, folks. I got it. Thanks. My name is Jake Newcomb. I have not had the opportunity to speak before you, although I've met you before Judge Wood, and I tend to stay in Mr. Lester's hair, as he's aware, over the past couple of years. But I'm an attorney here in Fayetteville. I work at the Davis Law Firm over here on the square, and I was hired by David and Mary Sparks back in August before this came before the planning board initially to advise them on the technical nature of a conditional use permit and the requirements that one must pass in order to receive a permit. There's been a good bit of confusion tonight that I hope I can clear up. All due respect to Mr. Hutchinson, I think he's made quite a few assumptions on what the neighbors think around there, what they can hear, how they feel. CETA also, I understand she didn't prepare the report, and so I'd like to go through some of it. And one of the main things that I'd like to discuss with you all, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, is section, I believe it's 11-200 of the Washington County Development Code. This section lays out 7 criteria which every conditional use permit absolutely 100% must meet. It's not a suggestion, it's not a guideline, it is not a it's an all or nothing. And to put that to you, I would point out, for instance, numbers 1 and 2 require an applicant to both submit a application and provide notice to the property owners. And I would posit to all of you that if notice wasn't given to the property owners, then the conditional use permit would not be allowed to go through. And so for the same reasons, it follows that each of the other conditions must be met. And you know, in CETA's report, she glossed over most of these, and Mr. Hutchinson glossed over most of these. I believe it's very important that we look at numbers 4 and 6. Specifically, number 4 states that the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area. We heard a lot about businesses and landfills, and I could zoom out on a map and show you sewer plants, power plants, everything else. But what's important is where this business is going to be located. These represent the neighbors that were given notice. You'll notice that Hutch's or whatever other industrial business that they've noted is not in this area. The earmark there is where the business is intended to go in. If you look around it, the surrounding uses, and I'll note that this is a agri-residential area, the surrounding uses, there's 15 homes that completely encompass this business. Those are the surrounding uses. Those are the uses that by law were required to be the residents that were required to be notified. This is my client's backyard, David Sparks and Mary Sparks. They've tried to show that, you know, some of these trees here, there is nothing there that's going to block the operation of this diesel mechanic truck shop. And the eyesores that were discussed at the planning board meeting were these. These aren't at the truck fabrication shop. These are what we have out there right now. And so I think it's very clear for us to see and objectively agree that this proposed use is simply not compatible with the surrounding area. It's absolutely not. And not only that, but to be honest with you, if one of these criteria is not met, then the conditional use permit should not be granted. That's literally the code. That's not, like I said, not a guideline. It's not something for us to sit around and discuss. It's, does it meet these criteria? If it doesn't, then it's not allowed. But not only does it fail number 4, it fails number 6 quite clearly. And number 6 states that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the surrounding area for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values. And, you know, I think this was touched on a little bit earlier by you, J.P. Dennis. Make it bigger? Well, you're just going to have to trust me. It's right out of the code, I promise. I don't know if I can even make it bigger on here. But at any rate, this is a two-part criterion, and the first one is that the conditional use won't be injurious to the use and enjoyment of these folks' backyards, their daily lives. And I think some of you have already expressed concern that it will be, particularly as it grows, and particularly because it operates all days of the week but Sunday. This is, like I said, this is a residential neighborhood. These folks don't walk out in their backyard and see diesel mechanic shops on a daily basis, and allowing it is going to. And I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination for us to know that this will diminish our property values. I don't know where you all live, but I think we all live in areas that are residential. We probably look for places to live that we don't expect a factory to come in our backyard. And the reason that we look for that and what we rely on are the zoning codes and regulations that are in place, which we make our basis of purchasing a home on. That's what these people have done. They've got distinct investment-backed expectations. They've been living here for 20 or 30 years, and that's why they don't. That's why they're against this. It has nothing to do with the fabrication shop, which Justice Deakins, I think you brought up. We didn't want to discuss that at the planning board either. But Mr. Simons, you noted correctly that the applicant has based their application entirely on the fact that that fabrication shop is existing there, and that's an illegal use, and nothing's been done about it. And they've in their statement of compatibility in their original application, they note they completely disregard the residential characteristics around them and point only to this fabrication shop. And so I don't think that that should be the basis of it either, but it's a basis because the applicant has made it so. And so as I stated earlier, that's two of these criteria that simply aren't met. They can't be met. I don't believe there's any condition that can be placed on this that would allow it to be met. And so that's really objectively, you can put all the emotional pleas aside. I'm for everybody being able to do what they will with their property the same way. I grew up on a farm. Understand that, but the fact of the matter is that these folks bought property with the intent to put a business on it that was not allowed when they bought the property. The only way it can be allowed is by a conditional use permit, and the only way a conditional use permit can be granted is if it meets these criteria. And so, I mean, like I said, put everything aside objectively, these criteria are not met, and so I would respectfully ask you that you uphold the planning board's decision to deny this conditional use permit. Thanks.
Any other public comments? Counselor, they had questions. JP Ecke and then JP Ussery.
Just a couple of questions. Thank you, Judge. Your clients have been in their home either 20 or 30 years.
I'd defer to them on that.
Okay, was the building there before, in their backyard before they built? That the building was allowed to go up?
Why don't you come up here? They have more information about the building. It was built there from a previous private residence, just as I think a lot of people in these areas would have to probably work on their own vehicles. It's never been operated as a business.
The building was put up, I'm sorry, my name is Nancy Hayes. I live directly south of the proposed property. Both of those buildings were put in after we moved there. One of them was an auction house.
May I ask how many years after?
Maybe 10.
Did you oppose the construction of the building when they were going up?
The buildings themselves I didn't oppose because they weren't going to be any, they were going to be residences at one point. There was no plans for those to be a business at all.
Can we get a chair? I mean,
Okay,
and I don't
yes.
want you bending over if you
Okay,
guys.
thank you, Judge.
Okay. I don't know if they're going to have any more questions. Hill, can you bring a chair up there? Come on, Ms. Hayes. I don't know if they're going to have any other questions. I just don't want you standing and bending.
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right, JP Ussery.
Thank you very much. My question is, we've seen several pictures of that
Pull
FedEx.
your mic down.
We've seen several pictures of the FedEx truck and the other trucks. Are those on the property? Are they on that specific place, or are they on the other?
I didn't take the
located?
photos, but it is my understanding that they are on the property with numerous other, there's a dump truck, I believe, that's out there, and it's indicative of what we believe will continue to occur. They, like I said, it was explained that they are more of a diesel, I think, engine shop, but I mean, what's inevitable is that vehicles are going to come in that are totaled, but perhaps the engine is salvageable, and these vehicles, the engines will be pulled, and that the other vehicles will sit there.
Okay, but just to my question specifically is, are those vehicles on that property at this time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? JP Ecke.
Is it Mr. Rivera? Okay, is saying, no, those are not on his property. They said that they're next to them. So is this just an assumption, or is this a fact?
The FedEx truck is right next to his building.
So it's next to his building, but it's not part, Nathan Crouch, our
Well,
planning director,
no,
I'd like to
no.
just settle, because you're being accused of having this particular junk on your property, which would be an eyesore for you, but I want to know, is it or is it not? Nathan Crouch would.
No, not yet, Lisa.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the counselor here, Ms. Hayes? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Any other public comments?
My name is Renee O'Schlager. I live at 18710 Strawberry Plant Road, which is west of the facility in question. I'd like to answer first a couple questions that were stated already. I guess I should also say you all have gotten an email from me, and I'm not going to go over that stuff. I've just got a few other comments. The last time I looked this week, the FedEx truck was still sitting there. In August at the initial CUP hearing, they said it would be moved that week, and it wasn't. It's still there. I didn't look today. It was dark when I left my house, but it was there earlier this week. I don't know any more than that. In 1977, my family and I moved to Northwest Arkansas. We noticed at that time that there were very strange zoning or non-zoning things going on. You would have a manufacturing business, and then you would have a beautiful house right next door. And it seemed very irrational to us when we moved here. When we moved out to Strawberry Plant Road in 2009, it was a sweet, quiet community. We have 3¼ acres. The property directly east of us, which is now got the 2 buildings, was pasture land. And I mean, we moved there in 2009. We had sometimes the cattle that was on that property would wander over to our property. And, it didn't bother us. That was fine. But as I understand it, one of the reasons that Washington County adopted zoning was to avoid communities that were mixed into non-compatible uses. And as I say, we moved out there in 2009. It was agricultural, residential, with, I think, a 1 acre limit or something like that on residents, one acre minimum. And there was no building over there at that time. In the interim, obviously, the buildings have been built. It is frustrating to the people who have enjoyed their property in these locations, residences, and I should also mention the signatures that I sent you, the list of signatures that came from members of this particular community. There is a subdivision to the south. It's called Legacy Estates, and many of those people object to this as well. People to the east, people to the north. That is a legitimate list. It was gathered by one of the neighbors, or probably several of the neighbors who live immediately adjacent to this setup. So forgive me for saying it's actual people who don't want this facility there. I would just urge you all to consider that the planning board rejected this initial CUP, and it was for a reason. I would urge you to uphold their rejection, and hopefully we can make this thing go away. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Any other public comments? All right, court. What's your pleasure? You have either a motion to uphold the denial of the CUP by the planning board, or a decision to overrule. J.P. Lemming, then J.P. Simons, and J.P. Madison. J.P. Lemming?
Do they want to make comments? The other two?
I don't know. I'm just taking in order.
I'm going to make a motion to deny it.
So there's a motion to uphold the denial of the planning boards, and it's. That's right. That's what I said. Uphold the denial of the planning boards. Uphold the decision by the planning board. And that was the second. I don't know who said that. That was J.P. Simons. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion. J.P. Madison.
I think, is this in J.P. Johnson's district? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? J.P., Mr. Crouch?
Nathan Crouch, former planning director. I was the planner on this project, and I just wanted to say if you all have any questions for me about this project, how I formulated my recommendation. I did take those pictures of the FedEx truck. It isn't on their property. I'm here for you if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
J.P. Eki.
Thank you, Nathan. I don't want to get this too long, but bring some clarity to this. When you have the planning department approving that this goes forward, and then you have the professionals of the board saying no, what was the dispute between the planning board and, if you can refresh my memory, and the planning department on this particular CUP? Did the planning department approve it and recommended it to the planning board?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And I recommended.
And they rejected it.
I recommended exactly.
Okay. And their reasons for, just clarify that for me again, please.
The reasons they denied the CUP request is based on the things that have been discussed here tonight, compatibility with the neighborhood, which becomes a very subjective notion, whenever it gets to this level. And so my recommendation of approval was based on not only was there a business being conducted next door, whether it was permitted legally with a CUP or not, it's still being conducted next door without complaints. And we're not going to go after that business just on a whim, not without some direction from our leadership. But my recommendation of approval for that CUP request was based on the other shop being within proximity, with landfill traffic coming so close and all day long, as well as countless businesses up and down Harmon Road, Arbor Acres, Barrington. There's businesses all over the place out there. Not very big. They're all pretty small. And so is the one that they're requesting. It's pretty small. And the FedEx truck is on the neighbor's property. It's not theirs.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Rio Stafford.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. So you're saying that the FedEx truck is on the neighboring property, and the neighbors are complaining about the FedEx truck, but yet there's no complaint about the neighboring property.
Correct, and there isn't, we had not received, I haven't reached out to the sheriff's department.
That
to see
doesn't
if
make
they're-
sense to me.
Right, me neither.
Any other questions? Thank you, Nathan. All right, so we have a motion to uphold, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
My name is Mary Sparks.
Go ahead, take a seat and talk in the mic.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
My name is Mary Sparks, and we're on the south side of his property. In July,
Mrs. Spark, can you please get closer to the mic?
I can, yeah. In July, after he purchased the property, there were 2 black vehicles that were moved into the property immediately and parked there. Neither one runs. They're junk vehicles is what I would call them. And a FedEx delivery truck is parked right next to him. I assume they're his. The fence is behind, the fence to the property is behind his building, and those vehicles are in front of that fence on the side of his building. So I'm assuming that those don't belong to the trailer shop because they weren't there until he purchased the property. There's his building, those junk vehicles, and then the fence. Now, maybe the fence is not on behind his property, I don't know. But I would assume that the fence is the line of the property. So that was, just like to dispute that because they're saying that that's not on his property, but it certainly appears that it is. And those don't relate to the truck shop.
Thank you, Ms. Sparks.
Questions?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. I'm Mary's husband. She's my better half.
What's her better half's name? What's your name?
My name is David Sparks. Our place is 18581 Harmon Road, just south of the facility we're discussing. We built our house there in the year 2000, moved in 2001. So we've been there a good while, enjoying everything about it until now. I'd like to clarify a little bit about the fabrication building and the proposed truck shop building. The building that now houses the fabrication shop was built by a local realtor who also had an auction business, and he told me personally that he was just going to sort some of his estate auction items in that building and live in it too. So we had an over-the-back fence meeting. He told me that, and within 3 months, he was holding auctions on that facility without a CUP. So we brought that to the attention of the planning board, and they required him to apply for a CUP and meet their qualifications, and was issued one. Many stipulations were made on it. There was an extremely limited amount of auctions he could have there in a year. He could not have dumpsters, storage of anything outside, and it turned out to not to be such a bad deal. The building that the truck shop is proposed to operate out of, from my information, was on a separate lot there, and this truck shop building was a building put up for the realtor's mother, and she was going to build a house toward the front of it. And they needed that just for a private storage building, to my knowledge. So after a few years, the realtor auction house owner sold the place to the owner of Triple B Fabrication, who has an adjoining farm. The land just, what would it be, west of the proposed truck shop is his pasture, and his house is on the other side of that. So when he moved in there, we just took it to be a farm shop for working on his own equipment. However, over the years, he has ramped up his trailer manufacturing business to the point where it is a major problem for us and our adjoining neighbors. So we will be bringing that to the attention of the planning board, and in fact, they already are looking at it.
All right.
That's another deal.
Thank you very much for bringing that.
One more thing. There were some photos in the presentation of a couple of trucks that, by accident, that were not on his property. It is on the fabrication shop owner's pasture land there.
Thank you for that clarification.
Best to my knowledge, the FedEx truck and the other cars are on that property. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion to uphold the planning board's decision and a second by J.P. Simon. J.P. Madison.
I just wanted to make sure, we're voting on the 17.2, right? Is that?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. The way it had been phrased was different from that. Okay, thank you.
All right, council, it's only on its first reading. Council, would you just read what you guys will be voting?
An ordinance denying a conditional use permit recommended for denial by the Planning and Zoning Board.
All right, so without suspension, it will just go on to next month. Otherwise, all right, so we'll move on to item 16, 17, 18. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance amending Ordinance 2018-64 to implement necessary adjustments to the law enforcement step pay plan.
J.P. Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. As you know, as you and the court well know, we have a step pay plan for the compensation on the enforcement division for the sheriff. This will supplement that plan and match what is currently Fayetteville's plan. So I move passage of item number 18.
Second.
It's on its first reading, right? Oh, okay, so go ahead. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hyers. This ordinance passes.
All right, item 18 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 19, Counselor, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $4 million from the unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the general reserve fund in the Washington County budget for 2021.
J.B. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This ordinance will move what we have in excess funds in the unappropriated reserve account over to our general fund reserve account in the amount of $4 million. This is a proposal that was implemented last year by Treasurer Hill at his recommendation, and so this is a way for us to move these funds over into that other account while leaving ourselves a cushion in the current unreserved fund balance. I move passage of item number 19.
The motion and a second to pass item 19. Any discussion? All right, J.P. Lemming and then J.P. Rhea Stafford.
Bobby, what will that take our reserve up to on that?
Is this on? Yeah. $12 million.
Will it come up some, Bobby?
Approximately $12 million.
Approximately 12. That's in the reserve backup.
Yes.
J.P. Stafford? Real Stafford?
Thank you, Judge Wood. Every organization I've been a part of, every nonprofit I've been on the board of, has had some sort of formal policy as to how much that they keep in reserves. It's important to have reserves, obviously. You don't want too little because if you have an emergency, obviously that's what it's for. But you also don't want too much in that fund because you're, especially as a government organization, you're basically, hoarding the taxpayers' money. My understanding is that this court has never set a formal policy for how much we're going to keep in reserve. And I think this, the growing amount of this reserve fund highlights the need for us to have one. And I think that that is something in the coming year that we should look at working on as a quorum court. I've done a little, just a little bit of cursory research on this. The Government Finance Officers Association has some resources for local governments on how much they recommend to keep in the general fund reserve. They recommend, I wrote it down here, keeping in the regular general fund at least 2 months of regular general fund operating revenues or expenditures. And they say revenues or expenditures depending on which one of the two is more predictable. So that's something that we could look at. My understanding from talking to Treasurer Hill is that our general fund, we spend about $3 million per month on average. So 2 months would be about $6 million, which is, we're going to have about, it sounds like about twice that in there. Our total budget minus the radio tax is about six to $7 million per month. But that's the total budget, not the general fund budget. Another thing that we might want to look at is a policy for how to use these reserve funds, under what circumstances we use them, and what our policy is for replenishing those funds in reserve if we do use them. But I think we need to, as a quorum court, come up with a formal policy on this. Thank you.
J.P. Lemming.
Bobby, back when Jerry was here, didn't you carry about 16 million for a long time?
Well, we've never had a reserve fund, unappropriated reserves. We had, most I can remember is about 18 million unappropriated reserves. That was years ago.
But when he left and that millage went away, it sure put the county in a hurt when that millage went away, didn't it?
It dropped general fund from 26 million down to 10.
Because when I come on,
that's in general fund balances.
We was having to dig for money to get everything picked back up.
Yes, it was a struggle there for a while.
It was a struggle for a while. So I think it's good to have that much or more in there.
Any other questions? Yeah, I'll just say that J.P. Real Stafford, I think you're on to that, and I know Treasurer Hill and I and the elected officials have talked about this, and I think I even shared this. You may even been with you and some of the other JPs that we do need to get to that place where we're saying what is a good reserve, and then what are some of those triggers once you hit that reserve that it automatically starts to go back to the people or decrease in the millage, et cetera, or vice versa when we get too far down in that millage, in our reserves, if it hits that bottom, 1 million, 2 million, it automatically starts to trigger an increase. And you can't put that on somebody else's court, but at least it gives the elected officials some barometer of where things are and where things will be so they can continue to manage their business, as well as the citizens, so they know what does it look like. Oh, man, we've hit 20 million, so we know that when it hits another 10% over that, it's going to trigger a millage decrease, or vice versa if it drops to 2 million. So anyway, J.P. Pine, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. I would be thinking before we could have any kind of discussion about some formal amount to have in reserve, we would need to have a complete appraisal of county properties what they're worth, whether they're adequately insured, and go from, you know, considering what kind of disaster you might come up with, you know. Well, a lot of times people they get kind of iffy about or wonder why you need so much money carried over in the road department, and it seems like it's never considered that you've got to have money to rebuild things that might be covered by FEMA. And you might not get that FEMA money until 3 years after it's built. Same thing could happen with any of your facilities. And so 2 or 3 months operation, or 4 or 5 or 6, might not really be enough after you find out what it would cost to replace any of the facilities and whether the insurance is adequate. Thank you.
Again, J.P. Rio Stafford and then J.P. Lemming.
Thanks, Judge Wood. I was going to say the GFOA has a lot of good resources to kind of look at a lot of these different sort of issues on their website, and I can share a link to that with you. And the
I've
rest
been
of the
there,
Quorum
and I
Court.
think even Treasury Hill. But
okay, I can share it with the rest of the Quorum Court, and,
Sure.
and for the public, I can put it up on the web too. Thanks.
All right, so we have the motion and the second. Any other discussion? Thank you, Bobby. Any other public comments? Public comments, Ms. Patty? To pass the $4 million.
Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. This ordinance passes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 19 passes. Item 20, Council, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $74,400 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to various line items in the Circuit Court 8 budget for 2021.
J.P. Lemming.
Yes, this is just letting Miss Warren get some computers bought and get some furniture in her annex building so her employees will have a place to go to work and have the stuff to work with when they get here.
I'm waiting on your motion.
Second reading.
No, are you moving to pass?
Suspend the rules.
No.
No, what are we doing here?
Just say you want to move to pass.
I want to move to pass.
All
Sorry.
right. We got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. This ordinance passes.
All right, item 20 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 21, Counselor, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance amending Ordinance 2021-96 to ensure compliance with the American Rescue Plan Act's eligible uses.
J.P. Deakins?
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is an ordinance basically revising our ordinance for the enhanced pay for the COVID risks for our detention officers. Learning more about the ARPA plan, and then also some feedback from our accounting department. They had a different way they wanted to account for this, so the impact will still be the same. The nuts and bolts are just changing a little bit on how that works. So I move passage of item number 21.
Second. Motion to pass item 21, second by J.P. Duncan. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Public comments, Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? Sam Duncan? Shonda Washington? Eva Madison? Robert Dennis? Suki Hires. This ordinance passes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 21 passes. Item 22, Counselor, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $1,000 in the Animal Shelter Grant Fund and appropriating $1,000 from the Animal Shelter Grant Fund to the Animal Shelter Grant Fund budget for 2021.
J.P. Deakins?
Thank you, Judge Wood. Our animal shelter participated in the Paul Coalition meeting put on by the Best Friends Animal Society, and for that participation, they were awarded $1,000. This is us accepting those funds and appropriating them to the animal shelter budget. I move passage of item number 22.
A motion to pass item 22 and seconded by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rio Stafford? Willie Lemming? Jim Wilson? Butch Pond? Lance Johnson? Shannon Marty? Sean Simons? Bill Usry? Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? Sam Duncan? Shonda Washington? Eva Madison? Robert Dennis? Suki Hires. This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 22 passes. Item 23, Counselor, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $5,000 in the Animal Shelter Grant Fund and appropriating $5,000 from the Animal Shelter Grant Fund to the Animal Shelter Grant Fund budget for 2021.
J.P. Deakins?
Thank you, Judge Wood. Our animal shelter was awarded a medical rehabilitation grant from the Best Friends Animal Society in the amount of $5,000. They seem to be our best friends. I had to try. Anyways, this is us accepting those funds and appropriating them to the animal shelter budget. I move passage of item number 23.
There's a motion to pass item 23, a second by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Evelyn Rio Stafford? Willie Lemming? Jim Wilson? Butch Pond? Lance Johnson? Shannon Marty? Sean Simons? Bill Usry? Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke? Sam Duncan? Shonda Washington? Eva Madison? Robert Dennis? Suki Hires. This ordinance passes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 23 passes. Item 24, Counsel, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance levying the county, municipal, and school district taxes for the year 2021.
J.P. Deakins?
Thank you, Judge Wood. At the end of every year, one of our duties is to set the tax and millage rates for the county and then also some of our municipalities around the county. I move passage of item number 24.
You got a motion to pass item 24, seconded by J.P. Ecke. Any discussion? Any discussion? J.P. Johnson?
Yes, thank you, Judge. I move that we amend this ordinance by changing Article 1, Paragraph A to 4.2 mils.
Second. So there's a motion to amend the ordinance, Article 1A, from 4.4 mils to 4.2 mils. And there was a second. Who's that? J.P. Duncan? All right. So there's all in favor of the amended. All in favor of the amended. I'm sorry, J.P. Madison?
I just wanted to know the fiscal impact of this. I don't know if our treasurer can give us that.
It's approximately $660,000.
One more time. Is that about?
It's, with the new countywide reappraisal, it's closer to $800,000 for 2.2 mils.
I just know the lesson learned from the last time we lowered the millage when we had a big old pile of money in reserves, that it did not work out. And I think we're getting really, really close to looking like we're using federal funds to cut taxes, which are it's expressly forbidden. So I think we should be really careful about this, and I think this should merit some discussion. And I don't think a last-minute amendment at 9:40 at night is the way we should discuss our taxes.
JP Lemming.
Bobby, didn't you also say since the new taxes come along, we was gonna be about 900,000 short?
Yes, sales tax.
So next year, we'll be $900,000 down because of sales tax, because of the census?
Approximately, yes.
Okay.
Other discussion? JP Pond.
We have an appearance of just having some kind of windfall here that's just, great money's rolling in swimmingly. But by the time that those revenues are adjusted, and by this time next year, the cities, because of the census and all that sort of thing, what they take away from that, which is constitutionally and rightfully theirs, I'm not complaining. We just won't have that anymore. And like we were talking about before, services that we provide to the county they'll be suffering again, like it was before. And just remember that every 10th of one meal is bringing in now annually $400,000, where it was $330. Is true, which is a good thing, because like I said, the cities will be taking that away from us before you know it.
JP Duncan and then JP Ussery.
I think what's eye-opening to me is that how quickly colleagues in the court will vote to pass something that costs $500,000, but when there's an opportunity to lower taxes with a court that's predominantly conservative, or people that claim to be conservatives, they are terrified of the idea of reducing taxes. This isn't our opportunity to lower taxes, and we have opportunities to make hard decisions throughout the year to spend less money and cut out waste. I would just encourage members of the court, and especially those who run on the Republican platform and say they're conservative, to take an opportunity to reduce taxes. What an opportunity we have.
JP Ussery and then JP Rio Stafford.
Thank you, Judge. A couple things. This is the first time in This is the first time in a long time we've had extra money. And like Butch Pond was saying, we've got a lot of money this year. We just gave the Sheriff's Department a huge raise, and we used COVID money for that. That we're going to have to pay for that in a year or two. And we need to consider those things, because when that COVID money is gone, these expenses are still going to be there. And I think, while I agree that we need to reduce taxes every chance we get, my suggestion would be to wait 1 year and see what happens, because we do know what happened when we did this before. And maybe we can learn from the past, maybe we can't. Thank you.
JP Rio Stafford, JP Johnson, and then JP Dennis.
Thank you, Judge Wood. To borrow a phrase from JP Duncan, I think this is decision-making by crescendo. The proper place to have brought this up would have been in the Budget Committee, or to bring it up later in the Budget Committee, instead of making a last-minute change to this. I agree with all my colleagues who say that we're in a really weird budget situation right now, with all this money that we're getting from the federal government because of COVID. All of the revenues and expenses and everything is all sort of very unusual, and I think we need to wait to see how it all shakes out. I completely agree with that before we make any kind of decisions like this.
J.P. Dennis and then J.P. Pine.
I move that
Oh.
we table this indefinitely.
Yeah.
J.P. Johnson. Hold on, I missed it. Okay.
I've got several thoughts, but and one of them is we've rewarded everybody in the world for what they've done for COVID. The taxpayers are paying that bill or are going to pay that bill someday. Why don't we give them a small reward? And the other thing, the only way we can control spending is to control revenue. Taking $800,000 out of next year's budget isn't going to make our job that much tougher. And the other thing I'm seeing is I'm watching what's going on in sales tax. And if we ever even halfway get this country straightened out again, this sales tax is going to go through the roof. You're not getting any sales tax on cars today because there aren't any cars in a car lot. The housing industry could build twice as many houses we could build if we could get the parts. That all generates tax dollars. I think the sales tax numbers are going to go through the roof. I think we need to do this for the taxpayers.
J.P. Pine.
Something that is forgotten many times. I've already brought up that because of the shift in the revenue that is coming because of annexations, and it's all rightly true. And so, the other thing is, on the other hand, we, the county, still have a constitutional requirement to provide services for not just the county, but the cities that are going to be taking that revenue and using it for the citizens of the cities. We just got through painstakingly and, I might say, changing the budgets back to what was requested by 2 circuit judges. By rights, we did that to provide services for not just the county but the cities. That in future times actually does pay for itself in possibly not having if you just looked at it in a business-like way, not having to pay more taxes for that much bigger of a jail. A whole lot rather see these children be educated and productive citizens than that. We have to do that. We have to provide those services so we have a safer, more unified community of productive citizens. That's where that money's going. And like I said, this time next year, this windfall that we're having now will all be gone to the cities that we have to serve. Now, I'm just saying, you're not going to be able to starve county government, stop services to the citizens of the county. Nobody that's suggesting that we lower this millage is telling us right now, this evening, what services we're going to cut. I know some of us tried to cut some services by deciding to reduce the budget of a circuit judge. I guess that's one place we could have cut services. Just, forget about diversion programs that many of us here on the court don't even really know anything about because we've never been down there to see what they do. I thank you all for listening to me blow off a little steam in my frustrated time at this hour of the evening. Past my bedtime, I might add.
Any other discussion? All right, so again, the amendment is to reduce in Article 1 the county general mill from 4.4 to 4.2. Motion by the amendment offered by J.P. Johnson, seconded by J.P. Duncan. All in favor of the amendment? Aye. Those opposed? No. Show of hands. All in favor? All opposed? So it fails. All right, so we go back to the original ordinance. That was J.P. Deacon, seconded by J.P. Ecke. Any other discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty? This is on the ordinance, item 24. Levying the tax.
Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Shannon Marty. Yes. Sean Simons. Yes. Bill Usry. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yes. Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan. Yes. Chandra Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. Yes. Suki Hires. Yes. This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 424 passes. Item 25. Counselor, will you read that one by title only? Oh, we already did 25. Oh, man, I'm moving like a... All right, committee reports to county services, had no meeting. Finance and budget, J.P. Deakins.
It's in the packet.
Oh, sorry. All right. Jails, law enforcement had no meeting. Personnel had no meeting. With that, Washington County bids you guys good night, thank you, and have a good Thanksgiving. Meeting adjourned.